That's excellent. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you. I would like to call the regular meeting to order and announce that the board did meet in closed session and no action was taken. And I would also like to announce that tonight's meeting is being video recorded and will be available in the district's YouTube channel. There are cards available at the table outside of the boardroom for anyone who wishes to address the board. If you wish to address the board, please complete a card and hand it to a staff member at the right of my side. And please make sure to complete the card indicating whether the matter you wish to address is on the agenda or not on the agenda. If the matter is on the agenda, we will assume you wish to speak when it comes time to address that item on the agenda, and we will hold the card until that time. Leading us in the pledge this evening, I would like to first call upon Jenny and Scott Green, volunteers at Franklin High School, to lead in the pledge, and assisting will be Ms. Nancy Chidas Espinosa.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay, and Ms. Chantel Albiani, the principal at Franklin, will be representing the families. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we're pleased to recognize Jenny and Scott Green for their outstanding support of Franklin High School. Jenny teaches 4th grade at Samuel Kennedy Elementary, where she taught for over 20 years. Scott works at Aerojet. They have two students who have had two students attend Franklin High School. Their eldest, Adam, graduated from Franklin High School in 2010, and their daughter, Emily, will graduate this spring. Both Adam and Emily were 4-year members of the drumline, the marching band, and the concert band. Adam currently attends Cosumnes River College. Emily hopes to attend UC Merced and pursue a degree in psychology. Eventually, she'd like to earn a doctoral degree. Mr. and Mrs. Green have been active within the Franklin High School community for the past 10 years, and they're exceptionally devoted supporters of the Franklin High School band program. For the past 9 years, Jenny has served as the band's uniform mom, an incredibly daunting task given that Franklin's band uniforms are bright white. Scott coached the drumline for 6 years and now serves as a volunteer. Jenny and Scott have devoted countless hours to the band program, traveling most weekends, dedicating time in the evenings and summers, and assisting the band director, Mr. Matt Mackey, in any way they can. Jenny and Scott Green truly exemplify what it means to be dedicated volunteers. Their tireless efforts have ensured that our band students have access to a superlative music program. It is parents like them who make our extracurricular programs possible. The Board of Education is pleased to recognize Jenny and Scott Green's many contributions to Franklin High School and the Elk Grove Unified School District. And to further drive home the point, these two parents are so busy. They are actually at Franklin High tonight engaging in another parent activity, so they couldn't be here with us today. So representing them is Franklin High School Principal Ms. Chantel Albiani.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Albiani. Next, we have our high school student representative reports, and first up, we have Cosumnes Oaks High School.
Good evening, President Madison, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. My name is Brooke McNeil.
And my name is Bailey Coben, and it is our pleasure to be here tonight reporting to you as Cosumnes Oaks High School's board representatives for the last time this school year. Wolfpack Theater's spring musical, Beauty and the Beast, is up and running. We would like to invite you all to attend this fantastic performance. Showings will be April 4th, 25th, 30th, May 1st, and 2nd. Showtimes will be Thursdays at 6, Fridays at 7, and Saturdays at 2 and 7. Moving from theater to sports, our women's soccer varsity soccer team is currently in first place with a league title showdown this week with the game against Bella Vista High School. Women's soccer, baseball, golf, softball, and track teams are on track to make the playoffs this year. Our junior prom took place on March 7th and was held at the Grand Island Mansion. The theme was Great Gatsby, and students danced the night away under the starlit sky. Senior Ball took place on April 18th at the Saccopolis Library Galleria and was themed Bright Lights, Big City. After dancing and taking photos in the photo booth, students enjoyed a lavish dessert buffet. We are currently in testing season. The month of April is the California Assessment of Student Progress and Performance for all of our sophomores and juniors. Testing is performed during our extended advocacy classes, and this week is the last week of testing. Next month is the advanced placement testing. Many teachers have been generous as to open up their classrooms to offer study sessions so that students can properly prepare for their AP tests. We wish all of our AP students the best of luck on passing those tests in hopes of earning college credit.
Last Wednesday, April 15th, we hosted our final Unity Day of the school year. The goal of Unity Day is to break down the walls between different students and to realize that we are all more alike than different. It was a great end to this year's Unity Days. We have had some exciting freshman activities. Our Link Crew class hosted a freshman fun day during the days that the sophomores and juniors were testing. Our freshmen are also helping with a project called Soul Hope. Soul Hope is an organization that is able to take old pairs of jeans and convert them into shoes for children in Uganda whose feet are infested with jiggers. So far, our students have made over 100 pairs of shoes, and we are not done yet. We love to see how students are giving back to those who are less fortunate. Keep up the great work, Wolfpack. We are starting to close out the school year with some important events. Our last food fair will be held tomorrow, April 22nd. This food fair will have a jungle theme, just decorations, not the food. Students can't wait to buy some of the fabulous food items that our clubs will be selling. In May, we will have a Block CO ceremony for eligible sophomores to celebrate their award and academic success. We also have many senior events rounding out the school year. There will be a senior barbecue after school on May 1st, as well as a senior goodbye rally and slideshow. Of course, we can't forget the upcoming senior trip to the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. I am sure these special events will be very memorable. And last but certainly not least, May 27th is graduation day. We would like to thank you all for allowing us to present this year, and until next time, we hope you all have a great summer.
Great report. And next up, we have Sheldon High School.
Madam Chair, while the next presenters walk up, I just want to suggest that we should all get jackets like those. Those are pretty snazzy.
As a proud Cosumnes Oaks mom, I can make that happen.
Good evening, President Singh Allen, fellow board members, Superintendent Huffman, and Ms. Hine. My name is Kalji Atwal, and I'm the ASB President at Sheldon High.
My name is Brian Marion, and I'm ASB Vice President.
As the end of the year is approaching, Sheldon's student body is jam-packed with fun activities. On February 12th, Sheldon hosted the 2015 ASB Interleague. Over 30 schools came and interacted with students who play the same role at their own campus. ASB students had the opportunity to share and collect ideas to recreate at their own school. On February 23rd, we had our Spring Academic Awards Night. Here, students were recognized for their academic excellence. Sheldon is proud of the 459 students who earned this award because of their hard work and dedication towards their education. We dearly appreciate Ms. Singh Allen, Mr. Fortuna, and Ms. Penne for coming and being a part of this wonderful night with us. On March 6th, Sheldon put on an out-of-this-world blacklight rally. It was filled with crazy neon colors, amazing performances by Sheldon's SBC, cheer, and drumline. The rally was followed by a casual dance. Sheldon students chose between dancing the night away or playing board games, but either way, they had a bright smile on their faces. Sheldon's Students Helping Students hosted the EGUSD 14th Annual Middle School Leadership Conference. The theme of this conference was Take a Stand, Unblock Your Potential. Our 500 middle school students from all 9 EGUSD middle schools attended. The conference is designed to have leaders on campus learn skill and information related to teen issues. It was filled with workshops and activities providing the tools to empower participants to feel more secure in their roles as leaders and role models at their own school. On March 11th, our art students had their artwork on exhibit at the Crocker Art Museum for the celebration of Youth Art Month. 8 out of 11 won awards at the reception, which was held Saturday, March 7th. Also, in the VAPA department, Andrew Lee's design won the 58th Annual Western Festival Poster Contest. Andrew's poster will be published and used to advertise the event throughout the Elk Grove community. On March 23rd, the Science Department and Biotech hosted a great regional science fair showcase. Hare Elementary science projects were judged and honored. Students performed hands-on experiments for elementary students and parents. UC Davis students presented, and our science department put on an amazing magic show for the audience to be entertained and educated.
The Sheldon Science Olympiad team placed second in the science regional contest. It was held March 7 at CSU Sacramento. We scored a point of 76, which are our best placement. This is our 4th year we achieved second place. There are 23 different events in Science Olympiad competition, and Sheldon's placed 7th or better and medaled 16 of 23. Sheldon's theater work, Much to Do About Nothing, opened April 10th and had performances throughout the week. Sheldon's Performing Arts Center. The wonderful show was open to the whole community. Each night, seats were filled with an energetic audience and their sounds of laughter and happy faces as they left a definitely that they enjoyed our annual spring show. Last week, we put on our annual multicultural fashion show and assembly. The week was fled with types of cultural, race, and traditions. On Wednesday, we had our fashion show open to anyone who wanted to wear their culture wear during lunch. They came to the beautiful assembly that showed reflected upon our amazing diversity. Even though we only had 1 hour represented for more than 12 cultures that run through our campus, it was a great performance. Our women's basketball team had 2 All-Leagues award winners, Janae Hare and Shantice Mendoza. Janae Hare won 3 awards, this award 3 years consistently, and this year she also received the Awesomest Award. We are very proud of all our winter sports as they came to the end. We are looking forward to our spring sports. On March 25th, varsity softball beat Davis 9-0. Sarah Fukushima had an RBI with a home run. Macy Fine had 2 RBI with a double and triple. Jordan Fine went 3 with a double. Jessica Scott had a 2 double. Gabby Montoya and Brooke Coyne pitched a combined shutout. Over the break, varsity softball placed 11 and out of 32 teams in the Michelle Carreyrou Classic and Anthem. Sarah Brown named to the all-tournament team. Varsity baseball went 3-1 in the Fresno Easter Classic. Matt Manning pitched a no-hitter in one of the victories. Varsity baseball also won 5-1 at Bear Creek. Matt Manning got the win. He had 7 strikeouts. Hunter White and Carlos Menaguas each had 2 hits. Varsity girls soccer defeat Grant 10-0. Nay O'Neill scored 4 goals and 2 assists. The Sheldon's Husky girls soccer team won March 23rd away against their rival school, Pleasant Grove, by a score of 2-1. This keeps our girls standing at 5th in the league. Boys volleyball fell to Monterey Trails in their first match of the season, but got right back up with their scoring with their second game at Franklin. The Sheldon Husky volleyball team won against Consummasoak by a score of 3-2.
In upcoming events, the Sheldon High School Art Department will hold its 18th Annual Arts Alive on April 30th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. All students from the visual art classes will be displaying their art pieces in different parts on campus. Also this year, we will be the model demonstrating school in California. We would like to invite our fellow board members and as well as the community to visit the art exhibits. There will be refreshments provided. Currently, my partner is passing out pamphlets that have information about our annual Arts Alive. We will also be having our annual Top 10 dinner on May 4th. This dinner is to honor our Class of 2015 Top 10 academic ranked students. The students will be accompanied by their parents and one teacher that changed their life in high school. On May 8th, we will be having our emotional goodbye rally. Here there will be recognition for our outstanding athletes and leaders on campus. Not only that, but we will have a slideshow full of memories as we look into the past. Thank you for your time and hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that excellent report. I would like to recognize our principals from both Cosumnes Oaks High School and Sheldon High School, Patrick McDougall and Ms. Paula Duncan. I see Ms. Duncan here. Thank you, and students, you may be dismissed. Thank you. All right, next up we have EGUSD Science Fair and Invention Convention winners. I'd like to call on Mr. Ray Peterson. There we are. And assisting will be colleague here, Mr. Fortuna. Hi.
Hi, good evening, President Bobby Singh Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Hine. Wanted to let you know that on March 25th, we took over the boardroom with over almost 150 inventions, or rather science fair projects, and representing 34 schools this year. Those projects represented the best of the projects from each of the school sites, and we also had at the same time our 6th annual Invention Convention, where we have 2 categories, a prototype division and a possibilities division, where kids could, in the prototype, the kids actually built an invention, entered it, and displayed it for judging. And in the possibilities, it was really a conceptual idea of what something could be that they displayed, and it was judged there as well. You're here tonight to recognize the first place winners of our science fair and our invention convention in numerous categories. So thank you for your time. And as the kids are lined up and we have the announcements, you'll come across here and we'll get to meet our why don't we go ahead and wait till we call you there, kids. Hold on. Okay. I'll call you. Ellis Snyder from Elliott Ranch. From first grade, Caitlin Campbell. You get to shake his hand. Very good. For second grade, Lily Alicant from C.W. Dillard Elementary School. Third grade, Mr. Kyle Looper from Pleasant Grove Elementary School. All right, Kyle. Great job. From fourth grade, Brooke Hansen from Consumer School Elementary School. Great job, Brooke. That's nice. From fifth grade, Tyler Kemp from Arlene High Elementary School. Nice, Tyler. Good job. Good job. This way. You get to sit over there. From sixth grade, Winter Gore Clancy from James McKee Elementary School. Okay. Then seventh grade from middle school, Nicholas Haw from Elizabeth Pinkerton Middle School. And the winner of our high school division, George Spithorst from Elk Grove High School. Okay. Now we'll call our invention convention winners. Is that all right? Shall we wait for
Yeah,
our
let's
science
wait
fair?
Get the pictures.
till they get the photo.
Carmen.
The media says
Yeah.
wait.
Mom
And
and dads,
parents,
come on
you're
down.
free to come up and take pictures of your children.
Wait.
Mr. Fortuna, if you're interested, please join the photo op
I go.
because your colleague is demanding it. Mr. Perez.
Hey, Ray, I'm not going to mention George just won the state FFA Science Fair yesterday.
He just did?
He got first place. So.
Oh.
No, transfer that in.
I think they'll get their own thing right then. Yeah.
Are we good?
All right.
Outstanding work. Congratulations. We're all very proud of you. Thank you.
We are. Okay. In our invention convention competition and contest, we have Emily Bigley from Arnold Adriani Elementary School, winner of the prototype division, 4th and 6th grade. Very good. There were numerous requests to buy her invention by a lot of teachers, so if you have a chance to look at that, it'd be good. And our next winner is Olabunmi Libimoyo from James Rudder Middle School for prototype division. Very good. And then I believe it is Abdullah Iyada and Tyler Wang, both from Joseph Sims Elementary School, who did a project together. Very good, gentlemen. There you go. Congratulations. There you go. And last but not least, Vit Bao Tran from Elizabeth Pinkerton Middle School and the winner of the Possibilities Division.
And parents, if you would like to come down and take photos, thank you.
Western art. Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, it's a god. Isla's a god. I'm just going to say I'm calling on Isla Houston.
Congratulations once again. Great work. Hi, Mrs. Bradford. My son's teacher. Yes. Very good. All right, next up, we have recognition of Western Festival Art Contest winners. I would like to call upon Isla Huster to assist and board colleague Chet Madison. Okay.
Thank you very much for hosting us this evening. I want to say congratulations to Andrew Lee, who is our first place winner, and Roy will want to take a picture of you with that. And here is your check for $200.
Wow, outstanding. That's fantastic.
And his teacher, Deborah George.
Great. Oh, is this just? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're- Have to figure out why.
And the second place winner for $100, Deborah George is holding the poster. That's the second place, Todd Sturvant from Pleasant Grove High School.
Wow.
And the third place winner
Okay, they're not here. Okay.
is Ryan Ising from Pleasant Grove High School for $50.
Great. It'll be, you'll see it on the online. But not that. Congratulations, young man. And please extend our heartiest congratulations to the rest of the winners. Thank you. All right, next up, we have the 2015 Mock Trial in Moot Court, Sacramento County and State Competition. Assisting is Ms. Charlotte Finney, and we will be doing teacher, coach, and attorney coach recognitions as well. And I'd like to call on Tony Perez and myself. We will be coming down to assist you, Ms. Finney.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bobby Singh Allen, members of the school board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. The Board of Education is asked to recognize and congratulate students from Elk Grove, Franklin, Laguna Creek, and Sheldon High School for their participation and performance in the 2015 Sacramento Mock Trial and Moot Court Competition. The board also is asked to recognize the attorneys and teacher coaches who assisted the teams in preparing for these academic competitions. The 36th Annual Sacramento County Mock Trial and Moot Court Competition was held in late February 2015. The mock trial competition simulates a trial-level proceeding in which students portray the roles of pretrial counsel, prosecuting and defense attorneys, witnesses, court clerks, bailiffs, and jurors before a single presiding judge and 2 scoring judges. It includes courtroom art and courtroom journalism competitions. All high schools throughout the Sacramento region were invited to participate in these competitions. This year's competitions involved 20 teams representing 17 high schools from Sacramento, El Dorado, and Yolo counties. Volunteers from local law firms and other legal organizations served as scoring and presiding judges for this 5-day event. 4 of the 9 Elk Grove Unified School District comprehensive high schools, Elk Grove, Franklin, Laguna Creek, and Sheldon High School, received awards for their participation at this year's mock trial and moot court competition. Sheldon High School placed 5th out of the 20 teams in the mock trial competition. Elk Grove High School fielded 2 teams. Its gold team placed 7th in competition, and the blue team was the winner of the 2015 mock trial competition. The blue team went on to represent Sacramento County at the California Mock Trial Competition held in Riverside, California on March 20th. One Elk Grove student received the J. Skelly Wright Award for being selected as Outstanding Defense Pretrial Attorney. Also competing in the event and receiving awards were teams from Laguna Creek, Mock Trial, and Franklin High School, Moot Court. The board is asked to recognize members and coaches of these teams and to commend students and coaches from other school districts that received medals or team leadership awards. At this time, I'm going to ask the teacher coach for each school being recognized tonight to come forward to introduce their team members, beginning with Mute Court, Franklin High School, and followed by the mock trial coaches from Laguna Creek, Sheldon, and Elk Grove High School. At this time, I would like to ask Franklin High School's teacher coach, Margaret Carl, to come to the podium.
Good evening. So I'm Margaret Carl, and I've been coaching Moot Court for Franklin High School for the last 11 years. Moot Court's a little bit smaller competition than mock trial. It involves an appellate level argument. This year's case was about a student who was possibly up to some mischief at a football game, had his cell phone confiscated, and so the students were asked to argue for both the school district and for the student, not knowing which side they'd argue until moments before the competition began, on whether the student's privacy rights were violated, whether it was an appropriate warrantless search. So they have to study the Constitution, they have to make public presentations, and they also stand before 3 appellate level judges. This year, I'm going to introduce my student Joshua Diaz, who was voted most valuable player by his teammates, and I'm just going to acknowledge a student who's not here, Justin Pedroso, who the competition gave an Outstanding Speaker Award to. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tamara Farmer. I was the teacher coach for the mock trial team at Laguna Creek High School, and tonight we are recognizing 2 of my students. AJ Sales earned our team MVP, and Zach Tedeschi, who earned the Outstanding Clerk Award for our team. I'm very proud of everything that my team accomplished this season and all of their hard work and participation.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Reed from Sheldon High School, and I am the mock trial coach for Sheldon High School. We had a great year. We had some kids working very hard on mock trial competitions, lawyers, witnesses, and pretrial attorneys. In the end, our students, Taylor Bartuca, Shanae Eckley, Caitlin Malo, Travis Nesmith, Mia Reed, and Dustin West are all here. Travis was our round 1 MVP. And we also, who were not able to be here, we had Mariana Ramirez as our outstanding pretrial attorney and Casey Gomes as our top attorney as well. So we're very proud of them. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is David Hill, coach of the Elk Grove High School mock trial team. And before I introduce our coaches and team members, I'd like to thank Ms. Penna and Superintendent Hoffman for the financial support that they rendered to our team and enabled us to go to state. And so thank you very much. Appreciate it. First person I'd like to introduce has volunteered as an attorney coach for a little over 10 years. He's a retired deputy district attorney and worked with the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office for the past 35 years. Rick Lukowitz. Next person I'd like to introduce is Jake Rambo, who is a judge in the state of California here and has a former member of the team and has been a volunteer for the past 22 years. And the last coach I'm going to be introducing is a former student of ours, student attorney, Carly McConnell, and she was just accepted to Bolt School of Law. And I think, Mr. Rambo, did you want to make a, thank you.
One of the more difficult elements of competing as a high school student in mock trial is being assigned the constitutional argument, largely because of the depth of material and the fact that they have to stand one-on-one with a judge. Ms. Chavez, you recall seeing that judge for us at this county championship was a retired federal judge who treats students the way when I interned for him in his chambers, treats them like they're real attorneys. We had a student this year who did both sides of the argument, which is pretty grueling. Any tournament we went to, he competed double. And for the first time in over 25 years in the school's history, he earned the Outstanding Constitutional Advocate for the state of California. So we want special recognition for Ryan Spieler.
Now we'd like to introduce the rest of the team. Junior Michelle Gill.
Hi, Mr. Hill.
Hi. Luke Gover. Kurt Cameron. Angela Lopez. Evan Lovell. Chase Levin. The captain of our team, Sierra Miller. Carolyn Hannah Ross. Pablo Suarez. Maxwell Thogmartin. And Noah White. And the last person I'd like to thank is our principal, Kathy Guy, who also aided us throughout the year with financial support. So thank you to her as well. Thank you very much.
Parents, you can come up front with your cameras. You don't have to stay in the back.
Nice job, everyone. Congratulations again. All right. Next, we have item 7, student expulsion recommendations. I would like to ask if anyone wishes to address the board in closed session regarding a student expulsion recommendation. Seeing none, I would like to call for a motion to approve the request for student expulsions. We have a motion. Mr. Perez, I need a second. And a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Very good. Thank you. All right, LCAP. Mr. Cerruti. He is already ready to go.
Thank you, President Singh Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. I always appreciate the opportunity to come up and chat LCAP with the board and continue our ongoing work and discussion. This evening is really a continuation of the work that we've been doing, and we began in, well, I was going to say began in earnest last week, but we've been beginning in earnest and doing the work all along, but specifically engaging the board in the examination of specific recommendations from Mr. Hoffman's cabinet. Just before I start, I do want to thank Mr. Forcina and Dr. Martinez-Allaire for their participation as recently as yesterday in our LCAP consultation committee. It's a group of broad-based constituents that are getting together to continue to examine the process that we have with the LCAP. So thank you to the board for your continued involvement, support, leadership, and direction. So this evening, typically I like to embed and ground the work in E4 and the alignment with the strategic goals, and at the risk of losing that focus, which we won't, I want to move right into the work. And the PowerPoint this evening is just a few slides. The first two you've seen before. These are the emerging interests and themes that came from all of the stakeholder feedback, and we walked the board through these last week. I won't go through them bullet by bullet. I just want to keep those in the forefront, as these certainly should align to our current strategic goals, our current LCAP objectives, as well as align to the 8 state priorities, and we'll make sure that they do. So those 2 slides indicate those common interests. And now moving to board member ideas from the workshop from last week. So just a bit of an explanation, and I did provide the board a bit of preliminary information about the structure for this evening. In taking all of the items that were discussed and referenced by the board last week, in cabinet we discussed them and then examined them through the lens of, are there some that we believe are currently addressed through the recommendations that we are making as a cabinet to the board? And this first slide are those that we believe we do, and I'll touch on them briefly. And then the slide that follows this are items that we didn't necessarily say that they don't align. It's simply some items that we believe potentially are best addressed outside of the LCAP process, and perhaps that we need a bit of additional information about. And what we're respectfully asking of the board is that the takeaway from this portion of our LCAP work is, if there are items that the board reaches consensus on, these that were listed were those that came from individual board members. Certainly there were some of you who were referencing some that other board members were items that other board members brought to the attention of the group. But if there are specific items, programs, or services that you would like further discussion, which will take place tomorrow afternoon, we'll add those to the list of priorities that were brought forward from Superintendent's cabinet, and then we'll attempt to get those, and probably we'll be able to get those costed out prior to the meeting, so then we'll be able to look at the list in whole, and we'll be able to begin the process, or continue the process of the board actually beginning to prioritize and make funding decisions. So I hope the context of what we're doing is clear, and if there are any questions from the board at this point just in terms of what we're trying to do, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll proceed. Great, thank you. So in terms of the items that are on the first slide of those that you as a board identified, these are those that we feel currently are addressed in the recommendations that we had made and brought forward. Parent-family engagement, we have a very consistent thought pattern with you along those lines, and we've made a recommendation for resources specific to that area. Increased site allocation funds, the same. Fund enhancements for GATE are being recommended. With respect to the SARB process, the work, Mr. Forcina, for example, is sitting on a committee that is doing work that certainly will make a recommendation that may be coming, but just in terms of the timeliness over the next couple of weeks, probably not, but in the not too distant future, that is something that will be a recommendation that's brought forward. The Teen Parent Program will continue to look at the options and programs and services related to that. The American Indian or Alaskan Native interest in terms of supporting those students. We do have an opportunity through Title I and Title VII funds to augment services in that area, and that is a recommendation that I've discussed with the superintendent. And so it's not to say that it's separate from, but it's a separate funding source that we do have resources available for that, and that conversation will continue. And it is a recommendation that we do enhance those services. Increased school site supply budgets, comparable to the increased site allocation. There's a common interest there, and it is a consideration that's been brought forward to the board. Culturally responsive curriculum is an area that all the work that we're doing with regard to professional development, the curriculum acquisition that we do, it's an ongoing area of focus that we do have. Expanding support for foster youth. The board saw last week that there was a specific recommendation. Mr. Perez.
Yes, yesterday I attended a foster youth meeting, and we were discussing the possibility adding 2 more counselors to that. There's a great need and justification for that.
So just for the rest of my colleagues, let's wait for Mr. Cerruti to go through the presentation, and then during our discussions, we'll bring up those kinds of items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Support for athletics, the recommendation is there to support middle school athletics and continue the support of our high school athletics. Again, ensure a focus on foster youth. Has been and there is a recommendation coming to increase programs and services in that area for next year and beyond. English language support for special education students and parents. It's a legal requirement that we provide, and we will continue to do that. So I just want to make sure that the board knows that that has been and will continue to be an area of focus that we have. And support the language needs in the district. There is a recommendation to augment further EL support and services from that which the board did last year. So those are the areas that we believe are very consistent in terms of the recommendations that we brought forward that you folks individually made. And so at this point in time, if there are any clarifications that are needed there or any further information, please.
Great. Mr. Forcina.
Yeah, I would just have one question for clarification with response to, gosh darn it, sorry. English language. The support for athletics, was that general or was that in specifically geared towards the 8th grade athletics?
Freshman class.
It is geared toward the 8th grade piece, but we will also have additional information for you tomorrow evening with regards to the 7th grade
To the 7th
piece.
grade, great, in terms of the cost. Because, yeah, I think it would only be 2 sports across the middle schools.
Yeah, we have both.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Perez.
Yes, could you elaborate on increased site allocation funds? Does that mean supplemental concentration funds? What?
It does. There's 2 different areas where there's recommendations that are being brought forward. One is, and I will look just to make sure, Rich, the percentage increase that we were looking at the site budget in and of itself, not the roughly 800,000 that we were talking about through.
It's the same amount that we did last year, and I want to say it was about.
It's 400, I got you, Rich. Yeah.
So it's an increase of 6 to 8%. So formulaically, it's looking at a 6 to 8% increase in site budgets from last year. There's another, so you were talking about specific supplemental and concentration. That's coming from the general fund, and I'm looking at my colleagues to make sure would be considered base funding. There's an additional recommendation that we're bringing that does target specific students, and it's a formula that's based on free and reduced or low income students. And that recommendation, those site budget amounts vary from, and I'm doing this from memory, from a low of maybe 5,000 depending upon the student population, 3,000 to 5,000, to a high of about 35 to 40 depending upon the size of the school, and that is specifically targeting low income students and would be considered supplemental / concentration funds.
Oh, that's a question I have. I don't understand the process, how you got to those numbers. Can you elaborate on those, how you derive at those 5 to 39,000?
The actual formula itself?
It was based on the number of free and reduced kids at the individual sites.
Well, what does that represent? Is that?
It represents the individual students at the school sites, counted those students, and that's what the formula is based on.
And so Shannon and I met, and Shannon can certainly, we can share with you if you're asking specifically the formula itself.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, I believe there's a board communication on this that went out.
There was.
Yes.
With that much?
Oh, yes.
So we do have the information.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. So we took the total amount of free and reduced lunch kids as of CBED's reporting time, and we ranked them. And we took that number of students times a rate per pupil. And the rate per pupil varies between an elementary, middle school, and high school.
Did you just use those students that are receiving lunch? What about the English language learners and foster youth? The unduplicated count, the total. You didn't use a...
We did not use an unduplicated count the way the LCFF is funded. We used just the free and reduced lunch count kids.
So why didn't you use the unduplicated count?
The unduplicated count in some cases for a different school site would be lower than other school sites. And so just the demographics and the different populations of students, we just picked the free and reduced lunch count kids.
So what happens to the foster youth and the English language learner fund?
The actual fund or
Yes,
just
that
students?
they're, yes. And, like, I think, well, I think, it looks like you're leaving out a group of people, foster youth and English language
Let me have that.
learners.
Well, the
that-
idea was to just actually get money to them based on a component of the LCFF. That money can be used for any of the three categories or any students that need to have an achievement gap closed. So if you keep in mind, though, we're targeting those kids, but the real goal for us is closing the achievement gap. So
Right.
the formula is what she said. We certainly could have done that, but it wouldn't have necessarily changed it significantly. It's just an easier, consistent from school to school, looking at the free and reduced count piece. So if the board gives us direction, we could always make that change. But it was just an easy way to get the money out there. But it doesn't limit it to those kids.
Right.
It can still be used for any of the supplemental kids.
And
Targeted.
Mr. Perez, if you turn to your board communication that was sent last week on Board Communication 254, it does spell those out item by item. So, exactly, by schools.
What I'm concerned about is that some schools might have a large foster youth and a large English language learner population, which I think they should get funding for, not just only socioeconomic low-income students. That's what I'm getting at.
But there are other funding sources that are targeted to those students.
I understand that.
So we have a formula where monies are provided based on the number of our English learners, for example, that goes out to every school site. So I just want to make sure that you, the board, and the community is clear that all of those students do have monies that are specifically targeted to support them, and in fact, plans are in place to do that.
Yes, but my interpretation of what I've read through the Department of Finance, Department of Education, is that this money is intended more money above and beyond what they're receiving now, and that's why they count English language learners and foster youth to get that extra funding.
Mr. Perez, if you look at the list, there's a number of items on there, additional services for foster youth coming through, additional services for English language learner students coming through. This was another set of resources that the sites had asked for across the district for sites that did not receive supplemental funding in previous years and were not in the categorical mix in previous years, but still had students of need at their schools. So this was a formula and a way to be able to get additional funds out to every site with the full knowledge that we were providing services for English language learners in multiple ways, providing services for foster youth in multiple ways, providing services for low socioeconomic students in multiple ways. But this was one way to be able to get money to the sites specific to them so that they had discretion over them in meeting the needs of their individual school site.
So is this a policy that we voted on?
We're discussing it, you'll be taking action on it.
On the policy?
Not on the policy, on the exception of the accepting of the LCAP in this discussion. That's what the discussion is for.
So are you saying that students or schools who are receiving extra funding, for instance, Title I, do they get this money?
Yes.
Okay.
Every school in the district, every school.
Every school.
The information that you received lists every single one of the schools in the district and the amount that each of those schools is receiving, yes.
So I will direct you again to the board communication. It does spell it out pretty clearly.
So, but I want to, when I read the Title I report that we submitted to the feds, it stated there that elementary schools were not getting supplemental or concentrated funds. The only schools that received monies were that LCFF funding were junior highs and high schools. Do you recall that?
I'm not 100% certain, I'm fully understanding. We do have our title schools, for example, if we as a district are going to be allocating schools as we did, what we can't do is say, well, the title schools already receive additional money, so we're going to set money aside and we're going to give it to everybody else. We can't do that. So we give it to all schools across the district. If you're referring to the title school, our secondary schools that would qualify as title schools are our 2 high schools and our 2 middle schools, Florin and Rudder and Valley and Jackman. We fund those 4 schools at the very same level that our elementary schools are funded at. We put them in bands, and we have to support those schools and use our own funding because we don't use title funds because those schools are not in program improvement, but they're required to use those monies in the very same way that our title schools do. So we meet the letter of the law by providing them their needed funding, and then they still meet the standards of how those monies can be expended. Those schools simply are not in program improvement.
Well, I kind of disagree on the methodology. I think we need to discuss that more in depth, maybe tomorrow.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Fortino.
if I can put my 2 cents in. The area of allocation and indeed the area of how we formulate budgets is one that I also have concerns about. And I discussed that with our superintendent. And just as looking at the budget guidelines and just as looking at having a policy on our reserves, we will be looking at the way in which we do set formulas for the development of the budgets. And I'm really, really comfortable. We're not going to have it now, but we're going to be there for next year. And and that will put us so far ahead of where we've been with respect to looking at needs and process, and we'll get there. I think it's fair to say when it comes to dollars, though, that there's no way to track where each dollar that we receive goes, because what we do via LCAP is provide a comprehensive instructional program to all the different populations. So you can't say, well, this group got $100, show me where you spent the $100. It's not that clean. If you take a look at the LCAP, it's really spelled out what services are provided not only to all students but to the targeted group. So it is there, but you'll never get an accounting of show me where every dollar that came in went based on the funding source. It's not doable. But I know that our superintendent shares the view that it is appropriate and responsible to look at our funding, our allocation process, our budgeting process, and that we'll be doing that. And believe me, I've been clamoring for changes for 2 years, so personally it's hard to wait another cycle, but I know we're going to get there, and I'm comfortable with the fact that I really trust that
It's a process, and
we're going to be there.
Thank you, Mr. Fortino.
And this isn't a disagreement in any way, Mr. Fortino, because I fully understand. I would say that if I looked over my shoulder at Ms. Stenroos and Mr. Fagan, they would contend that we in fact do have the ability to track every single expenditure to the cent. I understand what you were saying, which is it's the practical matter of tracking that money and putting plans together. I would say this, that there's a very strong common interest in looking at budget guidelines and how we're allocating money to the sites. There's a common interest on the part of many, and that is what we'll be doing. These monies will also, it's not just that we turn over that money, each of those schools develop site plans, and elementary and secondary education, along with learning support services, monitors those site plans very, very carefully to ensure that there's alignment with strategic goals. And actually the times have changed, because during the times of categorical funding, we had to make sure the money was spent correctly. We didn't necessarily have to provide any detailed report that said we spent it for this, we spent this much, here was the targeted outcome, and here was the outcome. So that's actually a game changer, and that's what we're going to have to do, and we'll be doing it with these specific funds, actually.
Right.
So have we written guidelines for how school sites are going to spend this or should spend it?
A great question, because that's exactly, for example, what we did last year with the $300,000 that the board approved for parent engagement. Elementary ed, secondary ed, and education services collaborated, developed a structure by which those monies could be spent, and those sites had to develop specific plans based on some spending guidelines, and that's exactly what we will be doing with these funds as well.
Well, I'm concerned because of the fact that last year we had $190,000 or $1,900,000 or almost $2 million that was returned, or that was supposed to have gone to the schools, but we didn't give no guidelines. So what happened to that pot of monies?
Well, again, the $1.9 million, it was not that there aren't any guidelines. That's
Right.
all. There's a variety of reasons why that occurred. We track it and monitor it very, very carefully, but it was not because there were no plans and there wasn't any oversight. And that money isn't returned. That money comes back to the district.
So what do we plan to do with that money?
Well, I'll look at Mr. Fagan.
That money got returned to the general fund, and it became part of our fund balance that we're now in the process of rebudgeting for 15-16. So it either it goes out, it gets spent, and Mr. Fortino's right. We can't track we do account for every cent, but we can't say exactly what it was spent for as far as items wise. But what happens is just like any other unspent dollars at the end of a school year, they fall to the bottom, and we see them at the bottom as one-time dollars. We would then, this year, we'd rebudget them as new items. It might be for the same thing, it might be for something different. You know, it's not, it's one big pot that we have to carve out a certain amount of it to meet the state requirements for expenditures on LCAPable items, new word, LCAPable. So, and we're conscious of that. We're meeting the requirements. We'll continue to meet the requirements. We'll be in compliance with the state.
Okay.
Any other colleagues have questions or comments? All right, I do have a couple of comments. I was going to save it for later in the agenda under other items, but because it is, I think, sort of timely to at least introduce this concept for LCAP, I had the honor of attending a workshop with, I invited Ms. Ellis to attend what's called the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Program. And we've talked about enhancing what parent and family engagement would look like. And here you have a wonderful opportunity that nationwide and in a lot of our local school districts are using it. A presentation was put on by Sac City Unified with the board president there and the superintendent. What we are seeing tangibly with results is you're getting a true understanding of the underserved community, those that don't engage. We can, you know, we can provide forms and pages in every language. We can have phone calls that go out to the homes, but it's clearly not enough. And how do you target those groups that have a hard time engaging? And this particular program is a wonderful program. We saw live testimonies from some of the parents of how it truly changed their lives, and they became ambassadors of this program. And what a wonderful tool for teachers also to engage and really become part of a community. And one of the things that it goes a long way towards is, you know, you're dealing at the forefront on achievement gap issues, where we can only deal with so much here in the school, but a lot of this, they're coming in with an achievement gap. And so a lot of those society issues that we don't have control over, that home visit with a teacher creates such a wonderful opportunity to build that rapport. And those parents are empowered, even those with very limited or no English speaking skills. They are becoming involved in their communities. They're becoming involved in the classroom and in the schools. And that word of mouth goes out into the community. It addresses things like truancy. I mean, there's a whole host of things that we can address that are part of our common interests already that are identified with a powerful program. So one of my suggestions would be down the road, once we sort of get through our end of the year events, is to have a meeting with this organization and of course with Ms. Ellis and see what this would look like, and maybe use it as a pilot program. Because if we're looking at parent engagement, I know that my colleagues would love to know more about it. And so I did send a sort of a one-pager along with the website to our superintendent. But it's quite powerful, and you know, we're talking about resources and looking at other experts, and here is a program in our community that works. I met with school district representatives from Massachusetts, and I think it was Utah, and in Colorado, where the engagement numbers for one single year were 11,000 to 12,000 families in 1 year. Think about what that would mean for teachers, for principals, for us as educators. Again, these are groups of folks that typically do not engage. Cultural barriers, language barriers, so many other barriers. It's a great program, and so I'm very excited about it, obviously, and so I want to share that enthusiasm. I see Ms. Ellis also. We were definitely moved by it, and we're very excited and very impressed. So I think we have a great opportunity to weave that in at the appropriate time, because obviously we want to go through and bring in our stakeholders. I do know that we use it in a sort of, not a pilot program, but we do have a wonderful principal that is sort of a graduate of Sac City Unified who was using the program. And I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with the principal at Earhart Elementary. And we have a great, you know, sort of an ambassador within our own institution. It does change lives. And I think with all of the talent that we have here, we can really look at addressing and making this parent-family engagement more meaningful in a way that we're not just getting back data, but we're getting information on the student, what's happening with the family. Because test scores don't tell us everything. It's a snapshot of how well a student did that day. You're not, you know, and our children are more than just data. There's a story, there's a history there, and it's a great opportunity for us to learn more about that. So I'm a huge advocate for this. Yes, Ms. Titus Espinosa.
Madam President, without being familiar with the exact program that you're talking about, I do have experience with similar programs, and just wanted to make sure we all know that the migrant education program, which the district doesn't quite administer, but our students do participate in, has long used this model. I've actually shadowed some of the teachers on home visits, and it's interesting. I went into it a little bit concerned because, you know, on a per pupil basis, it's kind of an expensive intervention, but you really get a lot for it. You know, other than identifying the issues you talked about, you'll find out, you know, are there employment issues? Are there transportation issues that are keeping kids from attending school? You are also helping these parents really become better educators of their own children.
That's right.
And in a family where there are multiple children, all of those lessons and all of those benefits will, you know, accumulate and benefit all of the other siblings. So I'd be very much interested in learning more about this program.
Wonderful. So I was going to bring it later, but I really do think because LCAP is really the right time, and we have this platform available to us where we are asked to have more meaningful parent engagement. There are opportunities. We've identified that it is a priority of the board. So now we can sort of fine tune of what that would look like over the course of the summer and have the pilots in the relevant areas.
I mean, the first item, the parent-family engagement piece focus on, you know, pilot programs.
Great.
We're right in the same wheelhouse. So.
Yep. So I wanted to introduce it here because I think it makes, since we have more folks here than we will at the very end of the meeting, I wanted to bring it up now. So thank you for that. Any other questions? All right. Thank you,
Madam President. The last slide, these are areas that as in Cabinet we looked over them, we viewed some of them we may need just additional clarification. So we would ask the board if there are items up there and you want to elaborate a bit on them. Some of them, though, we believe probably fit better, not necessarily in the LCAP development process, but for example, as we're looking at budget guidelines. So if you're looking at elementary counselors and library technicians and things like that, that's really, those are conversations. Certainly we've had conversations within negotiations, for example, where we've been looking at augmenting staffing, and it's resulted in an examination of those staffing guidelines and those budget guidelines. Also, for example, there's curriculum and curricular-related questions, and the processes we have in place. Certainly that information has been shared with curriculum and professional learning, and we work on an ongoing basis with our teachers to look at the development of our curriculum, the acquisition of our curriculum. The other perhaps also is, as we're looking at stipends, that is part of negotiations where that comes from. The term stipend, we want to be pretty careful, and I'm not saying this to the board because it can be a term that's oftentimes used if a school site or is offering, they've got some money and they're saying if you're interested, come to a training or so on and so forth, and a stipend will be given. Stipends are technically negotiated. Right. And so we come up with a negotiated amount. There certainly are times when we're paying teachers $35 an hour and they're being compensated, but it's not necessarily a stipend. So if we're talking about stipends and those types of things, they could be better served being examined within the negotiation process. And then simply lastly, there's the district grant program, and just to share, Mr. Forcina, I believe that was your suggestion, and we discussed it as a cabinet. And actually, Anna Trinnell and myself are working on putting some construct and structure to that of what it might look like in terms of how we would approach it. We're currently doing that, for example, where we had sites offer up their recommendations for professional development. And so they were site professional development grants, and we were a little leery because we said, well, do we cap them? What do we do? Do we put a certain amount? And we actually left it open. And we thought, well, what if we get $35 million worth of requests, and then we have to tell everybody, sorry, we don't have that much money. But we didn't inhibit them in any way, and it actually worked out very, very well, and we put specific guidelines to it. So we're putting some information together that will circulate through Cabinet and will certainly come to the board within the next week or two at the most, where we'll have some information for you. And with that, I'll just leave it open for questions and further clarification from the board.
Mr. Fortuna had another question.
Yeah, let's look at stipends, because that was one of mine. I recognize the negotiated piece of stipends, but stipends is a philosophy also when it comes to looking at who and what you're going to recognize for additional dollars. We have when we look at stipends on the high end, it's primarily high school, some middle school, and to my knowledge, no elementary school. But beyond that, when we talk stipend, we have to have discussions with respect to having equity and consistency. And this is another topic I've spoken to the superintendent about. Because there needs to be fairness. And whether or not I'm at school A doing a theater program and getting nothing versus being at school B doing a theater program and getting something should not be an individual site decision. That's a school district decision. If we are going to reward financially, and I support that, if we're going to reward financially people who are spending additional hours in support of children in the school, they should be compensated, but it's not an issue that should be left to the discretion of a principal with respect to who do I give it to, who don't I give it to. So when I brought up the issue of stipend, I do support the addition from a personal perspective. I support the enhancement of stipends because we haven't touched them in many, many, many years. But beyond that, there's also that larger general discussion, which I think is still an appropriate discussion that's held at the board level. What do we believe in, and where do we want to go? Then with respect to the negotiation piece, that piece will fall out. But I think you have to come to agreement on what the purpose is, who should qualify, those sort of aspects, and again, geared at having a consistent approach that is fair to all the employees.
Thank you, Mr. Fortuna. I think what would be helpful for tomorrow is if you can, on the list, maybe put where some of those positions are negotiated so that it's easier, I think, for board discussion purposes to have a better flow of the items as we discuss them. I don't know if there's a way to do that.
I'm following you.
So what's considered negotiated from these lists, and so that, you know, if you're bringing up library technicians or something like that, just so that we have a way of managing it from our end of, okay, what's negotiated and where we can identify board priorities and objectives versus what we need to actually approve.
Right, and so we can have a little bit of that conversation now, so because we have a little bit of an extended period to have a conversation. So if one thing that would be helpful to Cabinet, and especially Shannon and Rich, is these were individual board member ideas that are on the list here moving forward. So what would be helpful is if we, in having a discussion, the board gave us direction on which of these items should we investigate more and bring you additional information, and which of these items are important, but likely will take care of through another process. So that would be helpful to us as we're trying to get prepared for tomorrow's meeting. So we have the list that was provided to you last week, and then we can add some additional information about any of the items here that the board overall feels strongly about.
Okay. So with that, are there areas here that the board feels very strongly about? And we'll just sort of go down and we'll try to get some sort of consensus if it's, one person and really no consensus, then we'll consider it important, but bring it up at a different opportunity so that it makes it easier for you to manage the meeting. So we're looking for consensus, not without doing a formal vote, but, an idea of do we have at least 3 folks that are interested in that? And for the board member who presented it, I think it would be good for them to sort of make the case like the staff did last time of why you think it's important as a way of managing it. So we'll start with Ms. Chaitis Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to associate myself with Mr. Fortina's comments about the importance of fairness and consistency with respect to stipends. And, I'm sure we're all eager to hang on to retain these wonderful people who are assets at every school site when they're willing to give more of their time. So I would really support spending some time and resources on that. And I'll just list my top 3 just for the sake of conversation. Okay. So I also want to support civic engagement. I've spoken, for example, with folks at the county registrar recorder, and they have told me that there's more that they could do to come into our schools to provide civic education. So a lot of these things actually would have no cost, but I would like us to have, I guess, a more well-rounded, comprehensive approach to bolstering civic education. And lastly, restoration of arts and band programs, which suffered cutbacks across the state. And I would love if we could continue to restore those, particularly in the lower grades.
Thank you, Ms. Chaitis Espinosa. Ms. Martinez-Larry?
So I also agree with my comments, my colleagues' comments, but also I wanted to just have additional comments regarding the increase in ethnic studies programs. I had brought that forth as well as some other board members here. I think the intent behind that was to gather more research. I know, for example, Woodland Unified School District recently adopted ethnic studies program and made that requirement for the EGUSD requirements when the students completed as to get into college. And so I think, more information, if you can review that and get back to us and research that would be helpful. But I also see that in alignment with servicing the culturally responsive curriculum as well as the civic engagement counterpart being really important and instrumental, and again, the restoration of arts and band programs.
Okay, so let's see, I'm trying to jot down here. So they're trying to get consensus here. So you've got the bands. And what were the other ones?
Civic engagement.
Okay.
And then also increase in ethnic studies.
And ethnic studies, very good.
One clarification on the restoration of arts and band programs. We have done that at the middle and high school level, but I think this was but we haven't had full-blown band programs at the elementary school. So I think the term restoration is a little bit of a misnomer versus the concept of if that's something that we want added at that level. And the other piece is, that's a, not that I don't love band, but huge price tag item at 40 schools in band equipment and everything else that would go along with that. So it's a big ticket item and an item we would need some significant time to work towards. But obviously the arts and music and value of that within the district is a big deal. But I just want to make sure we're clear about that. I think the term restoration might be a misnomer that we thought it was there before, and all it is plugging some things back in, but that's not the case.
So what I think would be helpful, at least for that part of the discussion, similarly to, say, freshman sports, where that was a restoration, what elementary school sites have some level of an arts or band program where it is obviously voluntary, where there is monies that the parents and the students do put in. But I think that would be helpful to know what is happening at the different schools, what opportunities do exist, so that you can sort of offset the idea of a price tag, whether it's fully funded by the district or there's something, an in-between program where we have some opportunities, but you are renting the equipment and things like that. But is there maybe a hybrid? I don't know the answer, but what does that look like right now? What is being offered at what sites? How many typical students are engaged in those, just to get an idea so that we can start having that discussion, whether it's funded now or at another time, I think for us, it will be helpful to know what it looks like at the elementary sites right now, just to begin the dialogue similarly to freshman sports. Because I can tell you that in my own stakeholder meetings, when I'm out in the various sites and talking to parents, that is something that comes up quite a bit. So I know that it's very important, and how we get there and what that looks like. That's what we're all here for. But I know that that is very important to our constituents. All right, so we will move down to Mr. Perez.
I'll start with district grant programs to support innovation. I suggested that only because I know we have a great grant writer here in the district, but I thought, and she generates a lot of monies or funding for our district, and I thought we would fund another full-time equivalent that we will double her intake or monies, innovative monies for different projects. Also support increased ethnic studies. That's legislation that's going through the legislation right now, trying to get that full-time and credited within the high school graduation requirements. And you see that throughout a variety of school districts that's going on right now. Coding, that's 21st century job skills. That's part of the STEM program that I suggested. In the elementary schools throughout, well, some schools, they have coding classes for elementary kids. They're actually developing programs at elementary level. So I'd like to see some type of curriculum or clubs or after-school programs supporting coding for young children within our schools district. And that would support more science, because of the fact that we need more engineers. It's a matter of national security. And again, GIS, Geographics Information Systems, that's a new software that is used throughout different fields of study or labor, and that's a new growing industry. A lot of people are using that through a variety of disciplines, and that's you're always going to hear me supporting this program because I use it in the Department of Health Services and how to implement outreach for measles epidemic, which I did, how to do teenage pregnancy hotspots through the Office of Family Planning, how to do prenatal services, black infant death, which is a big issue here in Sacramento County. We use mapping software to do outreach and a variety of things. Universal early child care. I think within the near future, when we get out of this, I call it depression, but it's a recession, we are going to possibly have universal early care funding throughout the whole United States, and I will always be a supporter of that for all children and at every elementary school. Civic engagement, there is also more thought and legislation regarding civic engagement. In fact, there was talk about lowering the voting age to 16 and having students in class that are attending a civic engagement class. Once they complete that, they're registered voters. Restoring the arts and band, I've always been a supporter of the arts and band programs, and I'm willing to do some fundraisers. I know a lot of people out there would support arts and bands programs, and I know the community will get behind this through fundraising or whatever it takes. Library technicians. I think that's very important within our school district, after-school programs. I think every school should have an after-school library opening for support to do the homework, tutoring, et cetera, et cetera. Elementary counseling support. I was not the individual that requested this, but I knew that there is a big gap within counseling within the elementaries. But since I went to a foster youth meeting yesterday, and I learned that we do have foster youth counselors who are working within our high schools and junior highs. In the high school setting, they're meeting two high school counselors and they're seeing 250 students, foster youth. At the junior high, they're approximately seeing about 100 students, and I think there's 2 counselors at that level. But again, at the elementary, there's a big lack, and there's about 255 foster youth at the elementary level that need help, counseling and family counseling.
Mr. Prez, are there 3, because pretty much you've identified all but 2. Are
Yes.
there 3 that you would consider your top 3?
Oh, I didn't think we're supposed to
It's
name
just-
3?
Well, you don't have to, but since there's somewhat of a precedence, we're trying to wrap ourselves around
Well, I'm almost finished right now. I'm on the last one. So what?
the last one.
So, yeah, that's the last one, elementary counselors. What we found through the port, and Mr. Carl Steinhauer, who was there chairing the meeting, was very influential, enlightened me about the issues of foster youth. And he mentioned that when we have these foster youth working with these families and youth, that the our ADA goes back. We're losing millions of dollars because of ADA, students not attending school. But as a result of these 4 counselors who are helping these families and these kids come back to school and stay in school, they're producing a lot more than we pay, their actual pay, their salaries. So it's a win-win situation for every dollar you spend, you save 8 in that. Thank you.
Okay, so going back to my question, what would be your 3? And
They're
if
all
you want me
important.
to-
They're all
okay,
important to
all
me.
right, we'll put that into that good-to-know file. Mr. Fortuna.
Thank you. I do have 3, but I also want to make a general comment. You know, as I look at the list, they're all important.
Right.
But some of them that I look at will be resolved when we look at budget guidelines. One way or the other, whether you agree or not with where it goes, they're going to have resolution. Counselor, library techs, they're going to have resolution. Some of the items that are on this sheet certainly have value. They're going to be long-term discussions when we look at the implications. Some of them I already see us doing it blended into the curriculum that we offer and the work that our folks do. So I want to go to the first 3, and these are the reasons why. My first one that I had added was increase in associate superintendent allocation funds. I don't have a complete list, but it would not be difficult to do. But you heard tonight from Elk Grove High School that without the support of Ms. Penna, they would have had difficulty participating in mock trials. Across the school district, if you talk to principals and teachers, you come to realize that both associate superintendents serve as a lifeline to our staff. When they exhaust all possibilities for funding of activities that have value for children, they know they have one more place they can go. And if Donna and Tina can do it, they're right there to do it. So those funds, like everybody else's, are limited. That was the basis for my recommendation. Stipends, I talked about a little while ago. To me, it's just an issue of fairness, equity, consistency. We talk about equity for children. There's also equity for staff. And in terms of a discussion, I consider this to be an issue of equity. And then the district grant program, that was one that I had added, referenced a Elk Grove Unified School District funded and administered grant program to support innovative ideas by staff. So it has nothing to do with our grant office, that is a wonderful office, but this would be separate and apart from that. This would be strictly for staff to have as an avenue to get money to either further opportunities that are being provided to children. Example would be video production in elementary school, or creating a new program. So there's nothing on here that I don't think is important, but for the reasons I just stated, I support the first 3.
Thank you, Mr. Fortuna. Mr. Madison.
Okay, I have 3, and I'm not going to elaborate on every one of them or each one of them. The increase to ethnic studies embedded in the curriculum is important to me. The civic engagement curriculum piece is also very important for me. And when it comes to the arts and the bands, I'm a big proponent of that, and particularly when you go to high school graduations, take a look around when all the bands in each high school is there, and the Valley and the Florida regions are very anemic, bad. Not that they're playing bad, but there's not enough kids in those activities. We need to make sure we have teachers in those schools, band teachers without being cut, so we can build those programs from the middle school to the high school. Again, I challenge anybody, go to the graduations and look at the huge bands in a lot of our schools and look at the disparity with Florin and Valley region. I'll rest my case on that.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Ms. Albiani?
Hello. I agree that all of these are important, obviously. As I listen to the other board members, some things stand out to me. Civic engagement, curriculum studies, feels like it could be something that's put into curriculum as we adopt a curriculum and possibly develop a piece to add now. I don't know how much of a line item that is really required to be. I think it's very good that we've expressed it as an interest, and we all agree it's an important interest. But I don't know if this is the correct forum for it in budget development, and maybe you guys can help us answer that question tomorrow. Stipends, I am a huge believer in stipends, and I think it is not a problem that will be solved, as Mr. Forcina agreed, in the next week and before this budget's possibly even done. But I believe it is a direction that the board is very interested in looking at and trying to find an equal space for. I would request that we could find out what the associate superintendent's funds are. I don't have any idea what that looks like, and would request if they could speak to us tomorrow possibly about, obviously use it to help people come, but what else does it get used for, and just give us a little bit more background on that. And I think a number that would be easy to bring and helpful for discussion would be the cost to add to a library technician. How much does it cost? We have 3 hours. How much does it cost to add? What are library technicians across the board cost per hour? If we added an hour, or if we added a half hour, what is that a dollar amount? So I'm not sure if I don't have any disagreements, but I think those are some things we can put a number to that speak to budget priority. I think ethnic studies is an excellent idea, and I think that's in a curriculum forum as well. I don't see that as a budget project.
Okay.
Yes. Can I ask a question of Chris? When we met last week, you had indicated you met with John Fox and you'd be bringing a proposal with respect to a pilot program for CAP, and CAP is something that I just support 100%. They've taken such a proactive attitude towards the development of their children and have done a marvelous job. When I've attended meetings with CAP, they talked about curriculum that was culturally responsive, and they talked about ethnic studies. The pilot you're bringing forward, will there be a piece in that pilot that looks at ethnic studies, be they before or after school, during school, whatever, or is it going to be mainly looking at the parent piece of what they do?
Yeah, there's a parenting, I have to go back and look through the, piece by piece. I don't remember all of it on top of my head. There was a, looking at Mrs. Penna, there was a parent engagement piece. There was a college preparation piece. I don't remember there being an ethnic studies component to it, but that would be certainly a conversation that I could have further.
Okay, well, and I just remember, listening to presentations they had and discussions. So I just want to know if that was a part of it. Thank you.
And Ms. Albiani had another comment.
I've made notes all over, so I apologize. I believe that bringing arts back and band is obviously very important. I believe arts is a more obtainable goal to start with, and it does not have to be a high dollar item. And I would look forward to starting some discussions with our shareholders on what that could look like with our school as we're adding more staff, and if we could find people that specialize in that at our schools to work on that kind of thing.
Okay, so my turn, and I don't think that I have anything different than what's already been identified, but I will let you know where there are at least 3 board members that share in one or more of these categories, and we have 5 that we came up with that there was more than 3 board members that support. So the stipends, then the other one is increase for ethnic studies, civic engagement, and restoration of arts and band programs, and library technicians. So those are the 5 where there's at least 3 or more board members that they've identified as something that is of importance. Not that they're all not important, but that's where there were more than 3 that expressed an interest, and mine fall in line with any one of those 3. So for all the various reasons discussed, I think some of those can be discussed, maybe not through the budget process, but as our superintendent stated, restoration of arts and band programs. The word restoration is a bit misleading. So what would it's more of an introduction or an enhancement, whatever. But I think at least for the band component, which I'm a huge proponent as a mom of 2 children that participate in band, not every child is met for sports and athletics, and there needs to be other opportunities to engage those students and get them connected back to school through elementary, middle school, and high school. So, and I think there's a way to manage that discussion outside of what we're going to need actions on tomorrow. So, but that obviously has been identified, I think, universally as something that is important for all of us, and that is arts and bands program. But I think you have a pretty good list of what to look for tomorrow, and then with the others, there really wasn't enough consensus. So we can bring those up in future under discussion items, and really a good opportunity if there's something that any colleague had that did not receive consensus not being the majority, but at least, we got a flavor that there was 3 or more that supported. Please bring those up during your one-on-one meetings with the superintendent to share your vision. And, these discussions are going to be going on hereafter. So if we didn't address it now, there are several opportunities moving forward to bring those up. Does that help? Yes, sir.
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
But I'll have some questions, but I'll let you
Please.
finish. So I can't put a price tag on the term civic engagement. So what I'm looking for in some of these, so I make sure that the board has what they want tomorrow. I can take and look at the library text, for example, and say, we have so many hours at elementary, middle, and high.
Right.
We add an hour. Here's those costs. So I could do that, and that's simple enough to do. The band, is the board looking for something that's more of a first step that might be some type of an allocation to sites?
I think it's right now we're at an assessment of, it's an investigation. We're at an assessment similar to what we did with freshman sports. What elementary schools have something available? And what is it costing the community? And if it's super expensive, how are those school sites offsetting those costs so that it is accessible to those that can't pay for it? Are the PTOs stepping up? Is the school stepping in? What does that look like? So right now, I think it's too premature to say, okay, we're fully in. But it's important that we want this to be integrated as part of our ongoing discussion. Mr. Forcina.
Well, and I also think that leaving the word arts out there all alone becomes unmanageable. We're talking about performing arts.
Yeah,
we're talking about media arts. We're talking about traditional arts. When we talk arts, what
Visual and performing arts, I think, is the common. Yes.
All of it.
And I think if that could be broken out, elementary art, from my understanding, we don't have a consistent, anything consistent to elementary art. You always want to get in Mrs. Wasserman's class because she is a killer art docent. Okay? We need to have some killer art docents on staff. That's my point. It can't be, I've got 3 kids in the same grade, I've only got 1 getting good art every year, and it's, thank bless this woman. So I would like to bring that to to figure out how to build it in. And when I taught, I took on art in my group, and tied an art lesson to every part of an open court session. So at the end, I passed out to all my co-teachers, here's a packet, it's an easy art thing, it did these things. It seems like that's something we could provide overall, some easy, and we don't have to go crazy, it's just so when a kid graduates and you tell them, who wrote that painting? They know it's Matisse. I mean, there's some real basic things we can get into their heads to
Right.
give them some
Not
base
everyone's
knowledge.
going to be a doctor or engineer.
No,
We need
not at
to
all.
obviously, be
But to
providing
make
those
it easy for
opportunities.
teachers and
Yes.
to involve them, I don't mean to make
Right.
up new work, but to involve them in creating a hand-you packet that ties in with the extended curriculum we already expected.
So just to check for understanding, I'll
Yep.
go
Be a
ahead
wish-
and add these 5 items that you've, to
Yes.
the list.
Right.
And bring it tomorrow. The one that we can put a cost to, I will. And then the board could have further discussion on those items tomorrow. Is that a good understanding?
That sounds good, yeah, because particularly when it comes to arts and band, that's, this is just going to be an assessment of what's happening, and then we sort of come back and look at it. There are some elementary schools that have a dynamic sort of like VAPA program, Visual and Performing Arts. Ms. Shelley Hughes, Clark, when she was at Joseph Sims, has a dynamic program happening there. It's not at all sites.
Okay.
So, and it goes to a lot of the other issues with addressing equity and things like that. But I think we're at a point in time that we can start having those discussions of assessing what it looks like and maybe coming up with something, and each site is unique and we want to have some flexibility there. But we do want to provide resources if and when available to offset those costs because not every PTO is the same.
Sure.
So I want to be mindful of all of that too.
Yeah, as Rich is working, can you, because again, having numbers is good, could you, when you start putting all your numbers together, let's see, when are we meeting, 3 o'clock tomorrow? When you start putting all your numbers together, what would it look like to have a dedicated art teacher at each of the elementary schools?
Sure.
Of course, I'd like to see a dedicated PE teacher and a dedicated science teacher.
We're opening up Pandora's box.
But a dedicated art teacher.
I'd like to see a fully funded band program. I'd like to. So do you have enough guidance from us for tomorrow's meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
If I may, before we leave, and as it reference to the high school that I mentioned, I think we could somewhat poll some of the other high schools. Look at Sheldon, PG, Franklin. They have choir. They have tremendous bands. And then we get to the Florida and the Valley region. Why don't we have it there? Is it the money? How are the other schools supporting all this? I know their ADA is larger, but those are the kind of studies I think that we have to find
would be
out
helpful.
and see where the money goes, okay?
Yes.
Madam President, I'd like to, provide a little bit more guidance on the civic engagement issue. My interest is the same. We already have some wonderful things happening in the district, but I'd like to get a better sense of how can we support and build upon what is already happening, maybe expand it, make sure it's a little bit more consistent across the district. And I understand we're in quite a bit of a time crunch, but to the extent that we can get some ideas about what we can do, particularly with one-time funds, to put resources in the hands of our high school government teachers or, folks who are already running these community involvement, civic engagement aspects of the high schools in particular, just to support what they're already doing.
What will be helpful, I believe, to the board will be, Ms. Trinnell will be there, and we can certainly have other staff. So it may be helpful for the board to know what currently exists, so that
Right.
folks are fully aware of of what we have in order for us to begin to plan if there are needs to plan to continue and improve, which is what we're always looking at. So we could certainly have that available tomorrow in terms of to inform the board.
Very good.
And I would just like to remind my colleagues that the sheet we got the other day already is more money than what we have available to spend as we look at spending more.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cerruti. All right, moving on the agenda, we do not have a budget update. And public comment, I'd like to call anyone submitting a blue card here, and I do have a blue card. Those are old ones. I'd like to call on Ms. Catherine Duran. Ms. Duran, you have 3 minutes. Hi. Yep, but we'd still like it on the record
Thank you.
for the,
President Singh Allen, board members, Mr. Hoffman, Ms. Hine. You've heard from me, you've heard from Sue Mason, you've heard from Laura Constantine, and over the past couple of years, you've heard from another few parents voicing our concerns about this federal takeover of education. I know what you've been presented. We have a stellar district. The presenters are amazing. We're fortunate to have them. Unless I had a stellar presentation to contrast their presentations, I'd have a hard time if I were on the board not buying it, if I hadn't been warned. But the problem is you have been presented the opposition to Common Core. The flawed standards and the curriculum, yes, curriculum, the data collection, the Wi-Fi concerns, developmentally inappropriate standards for K-3, abusive punitive learning environment, abusive testing practices, loss of instruction time, administration of tests that are invalid, unreliable, and unfair. A test that's designed to fail 60 to 70% and as many as 90% of special ed students. And the illegal psychosocial constructs manipulating responses and the brains of children. So California state law requires that assessments be fair, valid, and reliable, and that the SBAC, CASP are none of these things. We've warned you of stated goal of the U.S. Department of Ed and the machine that fed us Common Core, that their goal is to abolish local school boards, and I hear, oh, that will never happen. But the problem is that if you haven't seen it yet, but if we don't stop this now, that choice is out of your hands. We understand that the trustees were elected and appointed to the board after the standards were adopted, except for one. Still, we have grave concerns and they were brought to you. It was your responsibility and to do the due diligence. Can we possibly believe that the board is so insulated that not one of you has seen what's going on in the rest of the country? That New York State, they're 3 to 4 years, other states have 3 to 4 years ahead of us, and they are on fire. We have 250,000 students that have opted out of the testing, and good teachers all over the country, the finest in the country, are quitting rather than doing this. So it's illegal. This is a federal takeover of education. It's unconstitutional. It breaks 3 federal laws and at least 2 California state laws. But here's the deal. I told you. It doesn't matter. Sue Mason told you. But it doesn't matter if 1 or 1,001 told you. You have been told. As trustees, you have a fiduciary responsibility to me as a taxpayer to uphold the Constitution of California and the United States. While I may not be as professional and polished and well-spoken as the esteemed district staff, the difference is that we are well-informed on both sides of this issue. The information we bring you is fact-based, it's verifiable, it is not a scare tactic, hyperbole, it is not born of tinfoil or fear tactics. It's well-documented, verifiable fact. I like you, I want to keep you. I could have been sweeter and more polished about this presentation, but I am frankly tired. I'm a homeschooler. I spent the last 2 years educating myself and others staying informed as an unpaid full-time job doing this.
It's past 3 minutes.
Okay, I have one last thing to say, and I'm going to have to say it. If you are still in favor of Common Core, everything that has anything to do with education, the overreach of federal government in violation of our constitutions, I'm putting you on notice. But I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and applying my tagline for your benefit. If you are in favor of this, you do not have enough information.
Okay, ma'am, we've gone 30 seconds over.
I'm willing to meet with you individually or as a group or groups, but this must be addressed now before we take further action. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Ann.
Thank you.
Okay, bargaining unit. I'd like to ask if any bargaining unit wishes to address the board. Ms. Ellis?
Maggie Ellis, President of Elk Grove Education Association. First of all, I would like to thank Bobby for her texting me on Friday. I was in the middle of a presentation at the Butte College for community college on retirement, and I get this text, do you know anything about the parent home visit program? I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to connect with the person. We've been email tagging, and want to come to a reception. That invitation alone meant so much for a partnership, and going and hearing the same information and the moving speeches by the parent through an interpreter of the power of that visitation. I knew two of the Sac City leaders who were present there who have worked so hard to have it a part of their organization. And it has been something that's come up time and again in just little pockets, and it's never really taken off, and I'm not sure exactly why. I think maybe it's because we haven't invited jointly a conversation to see how does it work, so that we can work through some of the questions and maybe the mysteries and the concerns. I know safety is always a concern, but this project has taken off in a lot of places. Whether it's paid or volunteer, how would it work in our district, what is the cost? But like Bobby said, our engagement with parents is it's forefront in a lot of our conversations right now. And I presented this to our exec board, who has an interest in exploring it, so that will be my step with Chris, is to set up a meeting as how can we get the right people in the room just to start the dialogue with the organizers of this. But one of my, Ken Poppers, who gets lots of legislation alerts, brought up the fact that AB 1014, I don't know, this is brand new. It's a grant program that focuses on early intervention attendance grants. And I'm thinking, you know, that we like to spend our money early on because we get the bang for that buck. And if we can get those kids engaged in those K-3 years, and we get that parent relationship, that might be a way to look at funding of some of these, to see there's a grant program. We have to see what it all entails. But I think there's ways to look at how can we not just use district money, but supplemental or grant monies that come our way. So it's definitely something we're interested in exploring. As you had your conversation tonight about your LCAP list, it brought back memories of last year, where there was lots of willingness to spend money. But we do need to prioritize. We need to take a look at what is it we're trying to do as a whole district long term? What can we do now? What can we do in a few more years? How can we have discussions about what is the best way to move forward? Class size at secondary is still a big thing. And when we start, and I don't want to say you're throwing money at things, but it kind of feels like you're throwing money at things when you talk about band and art and theater and this, but yet we have class sizes at the secondary level that are just outrageous, and we've only made a little dent in that. So everything is important, and I don't want to chastise you or anything, but I want us to be very thoughtful about what we put into place, and we don't just put money out there. We can always spend more than what we have, and let's look at a full picture before we really put money out there and put more on teachers' plates before we're ready to even handle it. Because with all the things that we are doing right now, our plates are very full. And let's have a conversation with everybody. What does it feel like at a school site if we were to add this? Because I don't want the board to approve something and then nobody really wants to do it because we don't have the capacity yet. So just some food for thought, and we'll continue more of these conversations. But I do appreciate the interest of making our schools and our experience for our students more well-rounded. That's something we all want. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. No, we can't have dialogue.
Oh.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. All right. Good affirmation there from back there. Any other bargaining units wish to address the board? All right, thank you. We are on to item number, let's see, no reports. So we have public hearing action items. Elk Grove Charter School petition to renew. Ms. Kathy Hamilton.
Good evening, President Singh Allen, board members, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. As you know, the Elk Grove Charter School, a dependent charter of the Elk Grove Unified School District, is seeking to renew its petition for a third time. EGUSD initially authorized Elk Grove Charter in 1999, and the petition was renewed in 2005 and 2010. Each petition is approved for 5 years. In accordance with board policy and California Education Code, the board is asked to conduct a public hearing about renewing the EGCS petition. I will return on May 19th to bring the petition renewal forward as a discussion item, but tonight I'm here to ask that you open a public hearing for consideration of this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. I'd like to call for a public hearing on the Elk Grove Charter Schools petition to renew its charter. All right, seeing no one wishing to speak, do we want to save any questions and comments for next time? Okay, so I will close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next we have item 9A. I'm going to call on Dr. Brandon Kruger, meet and confer summary between Elk Grove Unified School District and EG teams, meet and confer employee groups 2014-15 and 2015-16 school years, dated April 10th, 2015. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Good evening, President Singh Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. I'm here to seek board approval on the meet and confer summary between Elk Grove Unified School District and the EG teams meet and confer employee groups for 2014-15 and 2015-16 school years. As the AB 1200 Sacramento County Office of Education has reviewed and approved the meet and confer summary between EG teams and EGUSD, the EGUSD Board of Education is being asked to conduct a public hearing to present the meet and confer summary between EG teams and EGUSD reached on April 10th, 2015. So Ms. Singh Allen, if you could open a public hearing with a request that anyone who wishes to speak, and after that, reach approval as requested.
Thank you, Dr. Kruger. At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing on the meet and confer summary. Seeing no speakers wishing to address the board, I would like to close the public hearing and call for a motion to approve the meet and confer summary between EGUSD and EG teams.
I have a question before we vote.
Okay.
On number 9, I don't know what page it is, probably the second, third, fourth. It has new program specialist positions. And I wasn't sure this was premature to approve this in this setting versus tomorrow, because I don't know where the funding for these positions are coming from. Other than that, I'm no problem.
Mr. Hoffman?
Well, as we approve positions within the EGA agreement, what will happen is if the board takes action tonight, then this will move off the front page of the green sheet that we provided the other night and would be an action item already taken by the board. So it would be very similar to what we did with the other agreement.
So, but yet, so who requested these positions from, was this from parents, students?
This was actually a negotiation piece. This was a common interest between the district and the EG teams. The positions did come through multiple times in other groups that we met with, asking for these kinds of increased services, and we need these positions in order to better provide the services.
Oh, I support these positions, but I just want to know where the funding source was. That's all I want to clarify.
General fund.
General fund, base.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
I'll move it.
Actually, I'll clarify that those will actually be supplemental. We're talking about parent support, community support, so.
He said base.
Well,
Who's right? Who do I believe?
As a superintendent, I'm letting you know that it's actually supplemental concentration dollars in the budget.
All right, we have a motion and a second, so I will take the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or noes? Very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Kruger. All right, next up, we have item number 10. I'd like to call on Ms. Donna Cherry, Marion Mix Elementary School presentation. Oh, before we move forward, I totally overlooked, Ms. Chiatis Espinosa had asked for a break. Can we have is that all right? Can we just have like a two-minute break? Thank you. Oh, you can actually just walk out. Yeah, you can walk out next time. And it's just 2 minutes, folks. Don't get so excited. I didn't realize it's because she needed to go to the restroom. I just told her you can actually just go. We don't need to stop for that. Well, and I want to call. All right, my colleagues, can we please return to the dais? Thank you. All right, as my colleagues return to the dais, I will call back Ms. Cherry for our presentation on an exciting school. My new school in my trustee area.
Absolutely. Good evening, Superintendent. Gosh, I'm sorry.
It's getting late.
I'm going to try again. I know. Gosh, forgive me, please. Good evening, President Singh Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. I'm here this evening, and I've asked Principal Shelley Clark to join me as we provide you with information on Marion Mix Elementary School, Elk Grove's 40th Elementary School. Actually, Ms. Clark is going to do the majority of the presentation. I'll just open by letting you know that we'll provide you with information today about Marion Mix Elementary School. We will also provide a recommendation for the possibility of grandparenting for some students from their feeder schools, as well as take any of your questions or comments about Marion Mix Elementary School. So just to start, So just to start, Marion Mix again is Elk Grove Unified School District's 40th elementary school. If you have not passed the school, it's located off of Franklin Boulevard, just north of Laguna Park. The address is 4730 Laguna Park Drive. It is in Elk Grove. It's a two-story building. It sits on 8 acres. Generally, our schools sit on about 10 acres, so it's on a smaller plot of land, but it's a beautiful two-story building, so please take a few minutes to drive by. I know that Mr. Rob Pierce, along with Superintendent Hoffman and I, are going to be setting up some tours, so please feel free to go by anytime, but if you would like to wait for a formal tour, we'll be happy to do that. The capacity of the school is 850 students, and we will open the doors of Marion Mix Elementary School on August 13th. It is scheduled to open on a traditional calendar at this time. If you'll recall, the opening of Marion Mix affects 3 other elementary schools, and those schools are Joseph Sims Elementary, Irene B. West, and John Earhart Elementary School. So as you take a look at the current map that we have, you'll see Joseph Sims is a huge boundary, and it's the boundary that's shown in blue. If you take a look at Irene B. West, and it's the green part, it's a really a very, very large boundary for Irene B. West. John Earhart is the area indicated in yellow, and there you are. So you'll see Marion Mix coming up if you'll go ahead and hit the next button. And there it is. So now Marion Mix takes a huge portion of what was Joseph Sims as far as land. Joseph Sims is now the smaller portion on the south. If you'll take a look at Irene B. West, instead of it being that green area that it currently is and a part of that yellow and brown, that yellow now goes to John Earhart, and the brown area is now Marion Mix Elementary School. So quite a few boundary changes, and when we talk to you a little bit later in the presentation about grandparenting, we will talk about the possibility of grandparenting this year's 4th and 5th grade students, next year's 5th and 6th grade students from those affected schools. So again, that comes a little bit further, but just want you to keep in mind what the locations look like, how the boundaries have changed, and how that will affect the current students of all of those schools. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Clark.
Okay, so to date, we have 3 people on board, myself, Stacy Overos, our school secretary, and recently hired Mr. Machado, who was a former lead supervisor out at Sunrise Elementary School. He's just joined us yesterday, as a matter of fact. We are in the process of hiring teachers. I have hired 10 teachers from our wonderful pool on our first round. We're getting ready to go on our second round of interdistrict transfers in the coming weeks. And as that's happening, my current planning committee is transitioning from a planning committee of folks derived of many schools to that of my current staff. We met for the first time yesterday to do some planning and create committee leaders for the many things that we have yet to do for the school. We had, our enrollment is currently around 624. That's fluctuating up and down as the days continue to go by. And of course, if we make decisions around grandparenting, that too will change that number. We recently held a poll, and we had a committee to discuss school colors and our mascot, and we wanted to be, the committee decided we wanted to be something completely original that isn't already integrated somewhere in Elk Grove Unified School District. We agreed on 3 options, and a large base of our parents voted, and we just recently agreed to be the Marion Mix Mavericks, and our school colors will be blue and green. This one? Oh, I see. Thank you. Okay, demographically, we're incredibly diverse and very reflective of the school district as a whole. We're a little bit over 1/3 Hispanic, almost 1/3 African American, 1/3 Caucasian, and then, as you can see, a little sprinkle of everything else, which it really is exciting to serve in a community that way. And my teachers who are coming on board are also excited about the diversity that Marion Mix is bringing. So another really thrilling part about opening a brand new school is we get the first opportunity to be an E4 school from the ground up. So I want to share with you the pillars of E4 and how we look to be supporting those at Marion Mix. First, we have high quality instruction. Of course, we're going to be fully implementing Common Core, but as a STEM focused school, We also will be piloting next generation science standards. So our teachers are going to be getting ongoing training as the school year goes through our first year. We're collaborating with Ray Peterson and a host of teachers who are already piloting those standards in secondary. They're going to be coming in and leading my staff through monthly trainings in and around that. We are going to have a serious focus of writing across all content areas and explicitly teaching students the stages of learning through what is called visible learning. And if you're interested, I can go into more detail about that individually with you. In terms of assessment and action, we will be, of course, acting with those professional learning committees, professional learning communities committed to common rigor. What that means is we don't believe in the luck of the draw of one third grade teacher providing a certain level of rigor and the teacher next door a different level of rigor. That as a team and as my first 10 teachers have come together, we really mutually agree that it's so important that we agree upon and have a common approach to how we do things within the classroom, common expectations and high expectations for all. In collaboration, we also will be working closely with the middle school and high school. We're going to tap into area. Eddie already has a service learning project going on over there. They want to partner with us. And of course, we know there's so many fantastic things going on at Laguna Creek High School in terms of STEM. So we've already brought them on board. We also will be looking at continuing to team teach, and that all of our students will remain dedicated learners. All of our teachers, will remain dedicated learners of the students they impact. That too is kind of wrapped into the visible learning model. In terms of wellness, we will begin in full implementation of PBIS. There will not be a need to warm teachers up to the ideas and concepts, nor parents. Many of my teachers coming on board are already in year 2 or 3 of PBIS, so they already can lend a hand of how we can do that. We have already a committee of teachers and some classified members who are ready to come on board with that committee, and parents, of course. Overall, we really want to emphasize strong values that support compassion, collaboration, and community service. Ensure all students, parents, staff, and guests feel welcome and included. And in fact, yesterday in our first team meeting, one of the first things we discussed was kindness and how we will not just be modeling kindness, but we will be explicitly expecting and holding each other accountable for kindness for each other, and helping our parent community come in and understand their impact on students with that as well. And offering student leadership, visual performing arts, other after-school programs like that are STEM designed in the fields of engineering and such. Okay, so we have a rather unique school motto, we feel. Know thy impact on self, on others, on the community, and on our planet. And when you come visit my school, hopefully in the next couple of months, this will already be up on the wall for you to see. Our vision, this is what we're working towards. At Marion Mix, we will empower all to know their impact, embrace continuous growth, prepare for the 21st century. So when we're looking at, those are the things, that's our vision, that's our big picture. How are we going to do that? So we've identified some key things through writing a comprehensive mission statement. First, helping students, families, and staff develop a clear understanding of their individual and collective impact by explicitly teaching and practicing high levels of reflective thinking. Working collaboratively to identify challenges, develop solutions, and refine practices to better meet the needs of all students. Providing high-quality first instruction, which incorporates ongoing assessment of student learning that is frequent, accurate, specific, and timely to move students towards academic proficiency and beyond. And lastly, promoting 21st century thinking, learning, collaboration, and problem solving by making all learning relevant and aligned to college, career, and citizenship readiness. We're proud of that work. So in terms of how are we tapping into that parent-family community partnerships, we've already held 3 community meetings, both at Joseph Sims, at John Earhart, and Irene B. West to kind of share the overall vision and what we're aiming to provide students. Very healthy turnouts. We've had over a dozen committees that parents signed up to come and be involved in, and we've already held 2 PTA meetings. I've held 2 mascot meetings. I've held 2 safety committee meetings. among some other small things that are already going on. So here I've listed for you just some of the opportunities that we have for parents to already be engaged and things that are up and running. Some of those things will have to happen in the latter part of the year, but for right now, we've been really blessed to have the opportunity for me to come in early has been instrumental to getting these things ready to go. So when we open our doors, we're not opening A, thank goodness, in a portable, but B, without serious committed parent involvement. So as you can see kind of through the list, a highlight for me is the safety committee. Our students will have to cross Franklin Boulevard. And so we are working closely with Safe Routes to School, Elise Chadwicks with Safe Routes to School, and Bill Heineke to design some programs ahead of time to help build, safe and security and the faith of our parents that their kids are going to arrive to school safely. She's encompassed us in a grant that she's writing right now, so we'll have some ancillary projects and programs to support that. We hope to be, we will be a National Honor Society school, so we can align with all of the other schools in the Laguna Creek region who already participate in that. And I've already had parents request that we look into being IB as well. So I'm definitely interested. We have dates already for sixth grade science camp aligned for next year. And we're looking to branch out into our community to see what kind of STEM connections we can make beyond the high school and the middle school. What are some things already in our community that parents can come in and support that endeavor with us? And obviously, you're going to be involved, hopefully, and invited to our opening ceremony on August 13th. We will be competing with Dillard, who will also be having a grand opening of their beautiful building. But I'm working closely with Sandy Wiest out there, and we're going to collaborate so you can be at two places on the same day. So that'll be August 13th, so mark your calendars for that. And we've just settled on a community barbecue date. I'll get that out to Ms. Cherry as well so she can share that information. That'll be held on July 31st in the evening. So we opened our doors a week ago yesterday officially to everyone to come on in and check it out. Right now, my office and my secretary's office are really the only parts of the building that I would say are completed. Well, actually, not even that. The building is still under construction, but they've made it so we can be in there and functioning, which has already served well for the community. We're having lots and lots of walk-ins and questions. We're having daily deliveries. The deliveries will continue throughout the summer months. We have all of our furniture and equipment comes in stages, thank goodness, because right now we have one custodian, and that would be quite an undertaking to assemble everything. And then we hope to get the last of our audiovisual equipment installed by July. And again, the community barbecue has been determined on July 31st. What we're planning on doing as soon as we can assume the building from the architect and it's cleaned and ready to go and safe for everyone, on Friday afternoons, I'm planning on training some incoming sixth graders to come in from 3 to 4 o'clock to lead parents and families on tours of the building, because there's so much interest, because the building is quite interesting itself and of course exciting. So I'm excited, looking forward to that. We're looking at a possible bell schedule right now of 8:30 to 2:45 to accommodate transportation, and it fits in rather nicely with the region already. It fits in very nicely in collaboration with our high school and middle school because there's a 15-minute wedge period between. So I already feel like that's going to be a big hit for parents, so they don't have to be two places at 8 o'clock or 8:15. So we have that 8:30 start time, ending us around 2:45 because we're accounting for the possibility of late start, early out next year. So the question that Ms. Cherry had brought to you earlier was, will we grandparent next year's 5th and 6th graders? It has been tradition, I'm sure many of you know, and several of you have been here around to know personally, that we allow students to stay in their home school in the impacted areas, and we've had many, many parents ask that. I would say we also have many, many families that have already stressed that they're happy and willing and look forward to attending Marion Mix, even as 5th and 6th graders. In fact, I had 2 6th grade visitors today that are coming from their home school. So up here you can see for yourself what the current enrollment is. These are our current numbers of kiddos that are supposed to be attending all of the Laguna Region schools. And what Ms. Cherry is proposing is if we are looking at grandfathering for next year, grandparenting, pardon me, for next year, that we first ensure at least 50 students for 5th grade and 6th grade, so we can open with at least 2 5th grade classes and 2 6th grade classes. And that would help round our school out, obviously. We don't really want to open as a K-4. It'd be nice to open as a full K-6. So what would we do in the event that more students want to grandparent into their homes or their original school than go forward? Then we would host like a random selection process. One of our ideas is to host a community meeting late next week, go over all the details with all the families, start communicating this as soon as the board makes their decision, so parents can be well informed and feel like they have some input. So just some quick pictures. This picture was taken in February, and if you look at the slide on the very front, the school looks much different than that, and that was only taken 2 weeks ago. Here we have a shot of the library. Sorry, it's a blurry camera shot off my cell phone. As you come through the lobby, there are these big, beautiful doors, and you walk into this big, grand library, and the library is the center of the entire building. It's really beautiful. There's windows around. There's only 2 windows that look into the library. Most of the classrooms face outwards. Here's a typical classroom with, which you can see that window right there. Every single classroom, and even and of the corner rooms, of course, have 2 windows that go from floor to ceiling. It's really beautiful. It's going to create a really nice learning environment for students. And then this is just a shot looking down the main hallway, standing right outside the office. Up above, those are our fancy lights that somebody picked out. They're gorgeous. And those big red panels you see up there, they're meant to diffuse the sound. And the whole school is built in and around that, from the flooring to the pieces up on the ceiling. So our staffing timeline, of course, I was appointed back in November. We held the teacher interest meeting. I had over 150 teachers attend that meeting. They're very eager and interested in what's going on at a new school here. Ordering furniture, of course, our community meetings, transfer rounds, second transfer round coming up. And then we get to go to open hiring if I have any vacancies after that round in the middle of June there. And of course, opening ceremonies on August 13th.
One thing we'd like you to take note of, when we did have the community meetings, we specifically asked for a show of hands of parents who were interested in having their students grandfathered to be able to stay at their current school. At one, we had 2 hands raised. At one of the meetings, we had about 8 hands, and the other, we had a sprinkling of 3 or 4 hands. We've also asked the school clerks at the 3 schools, John Earhart, Joseph Sims, and Irene B. West, to pay close attention to the number of parents that have come in to request information about grandparenting, and generally they're, 10, 12 parents. In the past, when we have grandparented, we have looked at only the current students. So this year's 4th and 5th grade students, next year's 5th and 6th, but not their siblings attached. So if you were a 5th or 6th grade student next year at Marion Mix, and the board does say, yes, we'll go ahead and consider grandparenting, it would only be for those 5th and 6th grade students, not their kindergarten or unborn siblings. Right. Only the 5th and 6th grade students.
Very good.
So we'll take any questions or comments at this time.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Yes, Ms. Chaitis Espinosa.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, and big fan of your work as a former Joseph Sims parent, so good to see you. The idea of having incoming 6th grade students lead tours is brilliant on so many levels. I'm just curious, as a resource for parents, for families who are trying to decide whether they're interested in grandfathering at their current school, how quickly do we expect that to be up and running?
You mean
the tours?
You mean getting the 6th graders over there
Yeah,
to work as tour guides?
to do
I have to
tours.
first assume the building, and they
Right.
gave me a timeline of this Friday, but the floor's not there yet, so I kind of don't think that's going to happen.
Might help.
So it's really going to depend on when I get in the building and get settled. I already have a teacher really interested in helping me with it,
Yeah.
and I have a love of 5th and 6th graders. That's what I taught for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I've been, as families come in, I have been saying, well, how would you like to, and in fact, I took
I
2
saw you
6th
do
graders
that
on a tour
yesterday.
today. Yeah,
I
you
saw
saw
you
me
do that yesterday.
Yes, I'm working it as best I can. But we will be putting out emails, and we have very effective email systems, just a school-wide email system. And we have every family that comes in to register, we clarify their email address right there on the spot, and we ask them clearly if they do or do not communicate through email, and if they don't, we know to give them a call or to put something in the mail.
At the same time, we also have a letter prepared to go out starting tomorrow if the board approves grandparenting, and we will have community meetings at all 3 schools. So Irene B. West, Joseph Sims, and John Earhart for parents who are interested in grandparenting.
Sure, and in general, I mean, the reason I like the idea of the tours is because any parents who might have reservations, they might change their mind once they, see the new facility up close.
They will. One of the 6th graders was on the fence today, and when he came through with his dad, he goes, "Forget my friends.
Yeah.
I want to be here," and he had his cell phone out, and he was taking
Oh, yeah,
pictures.
it's
so
amazing.
It's beautiful. Very exciting.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Mr. Perez?
Excellent presentation. I'm very familiar with that neighborhood because I have friends in there and I do garage sales down then. And I know there's a lot of vacant lots around there, and I was thinking of what impact that, Robert, could this infields be if they were filled in within a matter of 5 years, within the next 10 years?
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I missed the initial part of
The
your
actual
question.
there's some, within the community, there's a lot of potential infielding of development, and I was wondering how much
So I'm going to jump to the map here, and I think what you're referring to, this region in the Marion Mix attendance area that's currently undeveloped, is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's just pockets. I know there's a lot of pockets within that area. I can't see what you're looking at up there. It's
So
not
I'm on
reflecting right here.
Yeah, I'm on page 4 of the presentation.
Yeah.
So the brown area is the Marion Mix attendance area. There are some, what I would consider to be very small infill potential, but I mean, it's relatively insignificant. The vast majority of what's undeveloped is either wetlands or part of the wastewater treatment plant, and those areas will never be developed. But there are some very small infill opportunities, but we're talking.
The other side of that railroad track going down Bighorn, I guess, also with that, in that area, that's within the boundaries also, right?
So the railroad track, so here's Franklin.
Yeah, when you go down Franklin, I think you
railroad
turn to
tracks are
right, there's a
here.
big empty field, and right before the first development, you hang a right, and there's an empty,
There's a church there, and there's an
No,
adjacent
no,
empty
no, no,
parcel.
before that, going south on Franklin.
What's your intersection? What are you?
To Bighorn, Franklin and Bighorn.
Coming out Bighorn,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
Yeah.
that's like
that's north.
out there,
I think it's a
west
preservation or
on
something.
Bighorn.
So that's part of the wastewater
That's
treatment
a-
plant.
yeah, that's a
That's
wastewater.
all-
But there's
There are
development,
s-
once you go further down across that railroad tracks, there's development right on the other side. And I haven't been back there for
White
a long
Road.
time.
Yeah, there are some very small infill opportunities, but most of that is all either privately owned property, part of the wastewater treatment plant, but nonetheless, with all of our new schools, we do have growth potential. And so there is a location at Marion Mix Elementary to house and accommodate future growth that isn't currently there.
Okay, thank you. So like you mentioned that you had 850, so that's 226 students that we could possibly put in there, so I feel happy that Mr. Pierce is happy or feels comfortable about that infield. I like your vision and your motto. Excellent. I think that's what I live by. New generation science standards, parent impact on students. I like that saying that you meant. That's very important to me. Empowering all to do whatever. Excellent. Where do you get that from?
It's honestly a combination of research, my heart, my planning committee, things that have inspired me through the years, how I ran my own classroom, which might sound fairly basic, but the work of John Hattie, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Invisible Learning, or Dylan William, who's done a lot of work in and around formative assessment. Everything really stems from teaching students how to be reflective learners and to know themselves as a student so they know the learning progressions. So when a student, the other big part of the research says that students are able to overcome insurmountable odds if they have grit, perseverance. Those things are instilled in them, and so we believe that those things can be instilled in anyone, maybe if they're taught explicitly. And so we're going to be looking to do that and empower all of our people, not just our students, our teachers and our parents as well, to understand the development of learning and be able to be so reflective that you understand when you know something, when you don't understand something, and then what's most important of what to do when you don't, and how to persevere through that. So that's the basics of
Excellent.
the thinking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Yes, you mentioned that 175 families went to the workshops. Of how many students of the 624 does that represent? I mean,
That's hard to say. You know, I had a very large turnout at Joseph Sims, but that's my community. I formerly was the principal there. I had a pretty good turnout at Earhart as well. A smaller turnout at West. I would say it's fairly representative of about the ratio of students I'm getting from each of those schools. Yeah, it's hard,
okay,
it's
you
hard to
don't-
say.
okay, it's hard to say. Okay, it's all right. We'll look at that later.
We did complete a sign-in, but the sign-in was made per family.
Okay.
Not per attendee.
Okay. And then one of the big issues I mentioned prior to you coming here was that I had been on the campus and I just kind of walked around one Saturday or two times. And so it's that shark fin turn in which the engineer told me about. That's how he described it, right there on that corner. And so I called a couple of people, and I'm not sure what's happened since. What's the latest on that shark?
Are you speaking to the turn around the down by that small park on the corner?
No, it's right there on Franklin, the southeast corner.
Oh, you're speaking of the intersection the school's actually
Not
on.
the intersection, sure, okay.
Mr. President, I think you're referring to.
We asked this last meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think you're talking about the intersection of our property line with that of the city's property line.
Right,
And where
at that
where
corner,
our sidewalk.
the
intersects
sidewalk,
city
right.
Sidewalk.
Mhm.
So out of our hands, but the city is planning on doing some work there. You know, the sidewalk there does need some repair. So we have worked with the city. Our understanding is that they are going to come in and do some work.
Right, and SMUD also.
There is a SMUD vault there as
Okay,
well.
right. Okay,
But it's, I just want to be clear, it's outside of our property.
but I thought that
the city
might get
property, so
an
we-
update.
We have talked to them about that,
Okay.
and as far as we understand, they're going to look at doing some improvement there.
Okay. Safe route to school, I'm glad you're doing that. What about the traffic drop-off and pickup potential? What, do you foresee any issues like that, like what happened to another elementary school? I don't want to say.
Bill Heineke came out and met with myself and walked the grounds with Elise Chadwick, and we're doing some planning. We have 3 basic drop-off zones. We feel like it's going to alleviate traffic a great deal.
So you don't foresee anybody dropping off and parking right there on Franklin or double parking?
We're going to do the best we
Okay.
can.
Okay.
I'm gonna-
We
Yep.
have to stop parents from doing what parents do.
Really? Okay. And I'm glad you have an English Language Learner Advisory Committee. So what, do you have the numbers yet, or, and are those?
No, I do
yet?
not.
Okay. And page 14, what criteria did we use for school start time? I'm not familiar with that process.
As we were looking at school start time, the first thing we did was look at all of the schools in the region. Again, I think Ms. Clark said to make sure that we didn't have the exact same time as the middle school and the high school, knowing that parents sometimes have to drop off more than one student. And then working very, very closely with transportation to make sure that we could accommodate the different busing situations, looking at the number of special ed students that we might have, offload students, as well as any students that may well attend because of public school choice.
Okay, and then on page 20, if you had mentioned you had February 18th, 19th, and 20th meetings with the communities. What were parents' concerns most? Like, was there a big one that they brought up?
Traffic.
Traffic,
was one
yeah.
concern.
I thought so.
And, you know, they want to know specific things. They want to know who Ms. Clark was. They want to know specifically about the focus of the school. And again, the numbers that I gave you earlier of people who had a question about possibly grandparenting their children in. But mostly, if you could have seen the lines of parents who wanted to sign up for the different committees. Some of them want to know about after-school programs, and we do have champions. They'll run a before and after-school program on campus. Those were the major concerns, but people were very, very excited, and the sign-up list was long.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Forcino.
Thank you. I need your help because I'm really conflicted on this one. This is the first time that we've talked about grandparenting, and what Shelley said was you don't want to start a K-4 school, really rather have a K-6 school. And what this feels like to me is another Consumnes Oaks and another open enrollment, both of which I certainly have had concerns about. If we're going to look at grandparenting, are you going to do, even though I know it's a short period of time, it's 2 years, are we going to have an assessment as to why people didn't want to stay where they belong and go somewhere else?
You know, thank you for asking that. Parents have a variety of different ways to circumvent the system, and I can tell you, for instance, because of the boundaries that we currently live under, there are a tremendous number of parents that actually live in the Irene B. West area that are on intra-district transfers to John Earhart, to the tune of probably 200 parents that really live in a different area. And so we know whether it's childcare, real or made up, people will find a way to circumvent the system. But a lot of it has to do with, just in our general conversations about distance. Some people with, of course, 5th and 6th grade students, they have been at those schools maybe their entire elementary school career, and they want to stay with their current friends, and they want to be able to matriculate onto middle or high school with their friends. And so, as Ms. Clark said earlier, a lot of it has to do with friends. They want to stay with their friends. Some of it does have to do with crossing of Franklin Boulevard, but at the same time, we have families that live behind the Jack in the Box, so that would be down Laguna Boulevard, south of Franklin, and because of the distance to Joseph Sims, they actually want to come to Marion Mix. Some people are just excited about it being a new school and they want to come. We have parents asking us their children actually should go to Joseph Sims. Could they go to Marion Mix because it's a new school? Some people have calendar questions. If they have students that are in middle or high school and they're on a traditional calendar, then they tend to want their elementary school students to be on a traditional calendar likewise. But you have both Joseph Sims and Irene B. West on a year-round calendar. So when we talk to parents at the meetings, and we've asked, again, that the clerks and the secretaries at the school ask those same questions about the why. Why do you want to stay at your current school? And those are the primary issues that we've heard thus far.
Are we going to have the same conversation in 17-18?
In 17-18? I don't think so. You know what? We're only looking, again, at two grade levels.
Yeah, I know what the proposal is. So the presumption is that within a 2-year period of time, there'll be enough new students that you'll have the enrollment at a level where it's not a requirement to fill the classrooms.
And again, in our recommendation for grandparenting, it's not for the younger siblings.
Right.
It's only
Right.
for
For the 2
the
years.
current 5th and 6th,
Right.
4th and 5th grade students. And so that eliminates some parents. If you want your children to stay together and you have next year's 5th or 6th grade students, but you also have a 1st grade student, we would not be grandparenting that 1st grade, so all of the students would then, or you would have them separate, or they would all go to Marion Mix Elementary School.
Okay, and because of its location, will we have a crossing guard?
We are going to have a crossing guard, yes.
Okay. And then, you know, my last question, and it doesn't have anything to do with Marion Mix, but it has to do with information that's on the sheet and the latitude we have. I notice there's a difference in school time at the elementary level for the sites of 5 minutes and one at 10 minutes, and
So
why-
some of those are year-round schools versus traditional. So because a year-round school,
Okay.
a student goes to school fewer days, they have more minutes per day.
more time, okay.
And some of it has to do with recesses. Some, have a 15-minute recess versus a 20-minute recess, but primarily it's the calendars.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, I'll come back. Mr. Madison or Ms. Albiani, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. Very, very good report. I do support the grandparenting. I don't see any problem we'll have down the road with this. It's nothing like Consumers Oaks or a high school in there, so I really don't envision any problem with it. Once we make this change a little bit, Irene West, 9 o'clock, and they kind of get with the program with the rest of the schools. Just a thought, if you can tell the principal that over there.
That's hilarious.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Ms. Albiani?
It's very exciting to hear about the new school, and I thank you for your presentation. This is my first time with this process. I do know from history, border changes can be difficult, and I think you've done an excellent job of involving your whole community to know what those are, and I think every minute you spent prior will help you and will pay us in tenfold. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a clarification question or comment from Ms. Chaitis Espinosa.
I got another question in my mind through the dialogue I was hearing. Have we as a district reached out to the city side, particularly the police, to see what kind of assistance they can provide with traffic, particularly in the initial days? So they're part of the team?
Yes, Elise Chadwick has attended, I believe, 2 of their last meetings involving them in conversations in and around creating sidewalks, crosswalks. There's a park and a vacant lot that's down the street from my school. We're looking at them incorporating a walking path that creates a more direct path from the neighborhood behind more directly to my school. So yes, they're all working in conjunction with CSD and the city.
Okay, another suggestion might be, the police department has a POP unit, problem-oriented policing, and what they do is they'll look at, what's going on across the whole city. If there's an area where, there seems to be a lot of speeding or just trends in general, and these are often around our schools, they will deploy as a team until, we as the good citizens of the city kind of become re-educated as necessary. So that might be another group to reach out to. They will plan the different priorities in advance, so there's plenty of time to get on their list.
Yeah. You want to share what Bill said about the traffic on Franklin?
So great suggestion, just to make you aware as well on the full board. We have a school traffic safety committee that's literally just EGPD, our police services, and then my planning staff, who Ms. Clark's pointed out a couple times. So this has been a standing item for, probably the last 3 meetings going forward, and we're looking to do some additional measures even above and beyond what we're doing now. So I can assure you, and it's a great point, and I'll make sure it's voiced at the next meeting, that at least the first few days, if not week of school, to have a presence there, because it's going to be everybody's first day getting and navigating to the school for the most part, at least in mass. So excellent point, and we'll make sure it's on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. The photos do not do it justice. Once you go and see it for yourself, you just don't capture the magnitude of the greatness of this building. It's quite remarkable. When you see the library from up above and you can look, it's amazing. I'm just a huge fan. A couple of points. First of all, as a parent, I really sincerely appreciate, and it's a point that Ms. Albiani made, is the high level of parent engagement and stakeholder input and getting the buy-in at the early parts. And that's why you're not seeing as many red flags, is because you did engage them. And I just think that's a wonderful practice. I know it has not always been utilized. As a mom with an elementary school that went through boundary changes, we had some level of engagement there, but it wasn't necessarily a district-wide effort years and years ago. I'm not talking like, just a few years ago, but a little bit dated. So I really appreciate that we are being very much proactive with our parents, because this is, this impacts our children. And so having that, I applaud the number of meetings that you've had and the high turnout. I think that that's wonderful. Another point I'd like to just bring up is having the 2x2 meeting also with board members and city. I know you're having it outside, Mr. Pierce, with staff levels, but we do have standing committee with board members and city council members. So as an opportunity to make sure that we are truly ready when school starts with the sidewalks, and, you know, we've got vacant, I actually looked around the site. There's a park there, there's land with, you know, very tall grasses. Like to mitigate all of those as much as possible before we do start, because those areas that are underutilized right now will absolutely be utilized come August 13th. So there's an opportunity, and I know that elected officials respond a little bit differently when it comes to staff level engagement, and then, you know, what sort of raises to a different level. Once we see possible issues out there, we want to be able to proactively address those. So I would like to request that we put that on the calendar with the city 2x2 and our board staff, or our board members, and get that going. And if we need to have a follow-up one with CCSD additionally, I don't know if we do or not, but I would definitely like to start with the city and get that moving forward so that we can address this before any issues occur. So I'd like to throw that back out there. Let's see, I think that's really all that I had, but wonderful, wonderful site, and I'm just so excited for you and our school and our region. And I know that a lot of the parents, it was a loss to Sims, but it's our gain, and they're in excellent hands. And we have a great leader that's going to take this to that next level, and it's evident in all of your presentation. And the personal site visit really, to me, is my opportunity to just sit here and have dialogue with you and be able to see the vision as you see it, without getting into any funky Brown Act issues that's more formal in nature. It's I think, as board members, it's a lot more appreciated to have those personal visits. I encourage all of you to, you know, of course, do the group visit, but when you have a personal visit, it's just a different experience before it fully opens. So thank you again for all the hard work that you do.
Thank you. I'm completely humbled for getting this opportunity. So thank you for entrusting your faith in me. I want to just take a moment to thank my administration. They've been amazing. The reason why we had those meetings right here, you know. I'd also like to thank Rob Pierce, and facilities has been incredible. Of course, we have to work very closely with them. And Steve Mate in technology. Yep. We're going to be showcasing a great number of new toys. So I encourage you to come over and see what that's all about. So thank you, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion regarding the recommendation for grandparenting 5th and 6th grade classes.
I'll move it.
I have a motion, and I have a second with Mr. Perez. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any noes? Abstentions? Very good. Thank you, Ms. Sherry.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Mr. Pierce, adjustment to school facilities fees.
I know it's not related, but if I may, I've built and opened a lot of schools, and I can say that Ms. Clark has been a complete pleasure. And when she asks for something, it's because she needs it, and it's not because she's panicking or trying to take advantage of anything. She's been a remarkable startup principal, so we're happy about that. So with that said, we'll move on to our next item. This has been a fairly routine, knock on wood, item for our board dating back to 1998. It is an annual item that the board must adopt each year in order to adopt what's referred to as a level 2 fee with regard to developer fees. So each year the district will conduct a study, which we're presenting to you tonight. We will also ask for a future public hearing and an adoption of the study so that we can assess a per square foot mitigation fee on all future residential and commercial development within the district. It is a state mandate that the local building departments receive our sign-off prior to issuing a building permit for any residential or commercial development, and this is the fee that is required in order for that sign-off to occur before the building permit is issued. So the board last adopted this study on June 3rd of 2014, and we will be asking that you adopt it at your May 19th board meeting moving forward. I will say before I start with the details of the study that there is a lot of talk about a new state program. The basis of this study and all the studies dating back to 1998 are exactly the existing state school building program. So in 1998, a bill was passed known as Senate Bill 50. Leroy Green, the late Leroy Green, was the author of that bill, and it really revamped the entire state school building program, and a component of it was to also be the architect, if you will, for how developers are going to mitigate their impact on school districts with regard to new development in their boundaries. So assuming the districts can meet certain criteria and certain requirements, they have the ability now, after 1998 via SB 50, to require an alternative school fee that's in excess of what then was a statutory amount, which is now actually the minimum amount. So it is a three-tier system now under SB 50. There's what's known as Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3 fees. The Level 1 fee is the same fee statewide. In other words, all districts will collect that same amount. The State Allocation Board, every 2 years, on even years, will adopt that statutory fee under Level 1. And in our case, we are proposing a Level 2 fee that we'll talk about in a minute, but the Level 1 fees still apply to commercial development, not residential. Our current commercial rate would be 54 cents per square foot, and because this is an even and not an odd year, there is no change in that fee amount for commercial development, and therefore we won't be recommending that. On to Level 2 fees. School districts are allowed to assess a Level 2 fee, but only if they meet specific criteria, and our school district does meet that criteria. And in this regard, the Level 2 fees are different from one district to the next. There's a few variables within the fee that we're allowed to use at our local, the local variances from one district to the other. The big piece being land acquisition and then site development. You can imagine an area in the Bay where there's a lot of topography. For instance, it costs a lot more to develop a school site. And then in some districts, well, in all districts, property acquisition can vary greatly. So those are the two individualized components for the most part. But the Level 2 fee is designed to be a 50% mitigation towards the impact of the development. And the California School Facility Program is to provide the other 50%. As you know, those funds have been exhausted. That 50% is not in place right now, but nonetheless, that is the design of it, assuming that it's 100% of construction, and many argue that it's actually not. So in many cases, we'll apply our Measure A as a supplemental source for our new schools. And as I spoke earlier, the school facility needs analysis is the report that we prepare each year, which is only valid for 1 year. Assuming that a district is collecting a Level 2 fee, when the state exhausts all of its bond authorization for new construction dollars, that was supposed to, by design, generate what's called the Level 3 fee. And the Level 3 fee is just a doubling of the Level 2 fee and intended to fund 100% of the impact from development on local school districts. So in the event that no facilities funds are available or no longer being issued by the State Allocation Board, there should be a finding made, and it triggers a number of actions at the legislature that would trigger the Level 3 fee, but it's never been implemented. There have been some legislative vehicles in prior sessions that have deferred the fee. However, those have exhausted, but I can promise you that the political will and the desire to initiate Level 3 fees is not in place, and it won't be in place anytime in the foreseeable future. So we don't actually see Level 3 as something that's going to happen. In fact, the governor in his budget proposal said he does envision some changes to developer fees, but it's going to be something less than Level 2 and something less than Level 3. So I don't see Level 3 as a reality. Nonetheless, we do want to adopt it in the event that someone at the legislature decides they should be funding us fully for the impact. Because, as you know, we're mandated to house the students that come as a result of the development.
So there's a lot more to it. You have the study in front of you, and you can, if you've followed the study, it's really just a formula. Everything in that formula is in statute. It tells the district how it's allowed to determine and establish the fee. But in a nutshell, the fee is derived of a 5-year projection of all future development that we anticipate having. Ms. Williams, who's here tonight, Kim Williams, who's our planning manager, I thank her. She's done a tremendous amount of work on this study, and she does each year, but she works closely with all of the local jurisdictions on determining that 5-year projection of new residential units. From that, we determine the number of students that are projected from those residential units, and that's based on previous student generation rates of homes that have been built within our district. And then we calculate the existing capacity of our district based on, again, state formulas, and then the number of unhoused students as a result of our capacity and that future development in those previous steps. And then moving forward, the calculation determines the allowable school facility costs. It's based on the state new construction grant. It's based on our local site development construction costs, and it's based on our local land acquisition costs. And then we have to do a test of determining what local funds that we might already have available to offset the need for the development community to mitigate future growth. And then we determine our overall need to accommodate that new growth. So this is just a quick summary of how all of that formula comes together. But it's the school facility costs anticipated for the new development students, which is divided by the total residential square footage projected over that period, and that equals a per square foot amount fee. So an important piece to tonight's discussion and our discussion moving forward, this is the non-routine piece of what we're going to talk about tonight. So the law requires the State Allocation Board to adopt a grant adjustment each January for the new construction allocation. As I mentioned, that new construction grant is a key component to establishing how much it costs to build a school. However, this year, the State Allocation Board did not meet in January. They agendized the item in February, only to pull it, and then they did not meet again in March, and they met on April 15th and finally heard this item, did adopt a 4.27% increase, generally speaking, and from kindergarten through 12th grade. The grants vary from K6, 7, 8, 9, 12. So the good news is they did adopt an increase in April, but they did not at that time adopt an increase for some of the adjusters. There's a lot of add-ons to a new construction project. If the project requires fire sprinklers, for instance, you get a 3% increase. They didn't go in and adjust those, but they gave staff the authority to adjust those. Nonetheless, because the fee is only valid for 1 year, your current fee expires June 3rd. There are statutory requirements for public comment of the document and having it available for the public. You are not going to be in a position to take the new grant increase, apply it into your study, get it out to the public in time to adopt it before your current fee expires. And when that fee expires, you're not authorized to collect a level 2 fee, and we have developers come in nearly every day to pay their fees. So we didn't want you to miss that opportunity. So what staff's proposing at this point, you would adopt the fee that we're proposing now. My understanding was Office of Public School Construction staff tonight was going to post on their website the increases entirely, so that we can now go back, apply it to our formula, start this process again in terms of public comment, and then bring the study back to you for a potential increase based on the grant increases. So it's never happened before, at least since 1998 that I'm aware of, where they haven't adopted it in January, and it's just put you in a timing predicament relative to your current fee and when it expires. And you are authorized as a board, by the way, to update your fee as often as you would like throughout the fiscal year. So you're not limited in how many times you adopt and update the fee. So here is just a quick summary of previous year fees, so you can see the volatility through the Great Recession and moving forward. The fee was at its height in 2007, 2008 at $5.22 a square foot for residential development, and it started the decline in the immediate prior year.
And then it's kind of been up and down there for a couple years. And you can see starting in 2011, there's been a slight increase each year moving forward to the current fee of $487. The study that's before the board tonight, and we will ask you to adopt on May 19th, would propose a level 2 fee of $4.91. So it's a slight increase of 4 cents, you can see. And on a relative basis for a new home in our district, it's quite small. However, with the grant increase, you may be seeing a study in the future that would be higher than that and could be upwards of $5.10 a square foot, depending on what the final calculation is. So again, relative to what we've seen historically, the fee is still low relative to where it was in its height. But again, just a slight marginal increase in the proposed fee before you tonight. So a little bit about the process, and we've talked about this already, but the law requires that we make the study available for the public at least 30 days in advance. We've done that. The district must also provide the study 45 days in advance to all the local planning departments. So City of Elk Grove, County of Sacramento, City of Rancho Cordova, and of course the City of Sacramento. And then you're required by law to hold a public hearing at a regular meeting prior to the adoption. And we are proposing that happens on May 19th. And upon your approval of that study, it goes into effect immediately upon your adoption. And we would, of course, communicate that out to all of the local jurisdictions in its finality so that they're sure to share that information with home builders and developers. But we work closely with the North State Building Industry Association. It's really their members who pay this fee, who come in as home builders. So they have it well in advance. We always offer to sit down with them, walk them through any changes in the study. Ms. Williams and myself have a good rapport with them. They know that we live up to the letter of the law in that study. We don't manipulate it. We don't play games, whether that generates a decrease or an increase. It is what it is. And because of that, I think the working relationship with them has been well, and you haven't heard from them in terms of our studies, at least in the past. So we hope that continues moving forward. So I know I threw a lot at you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pierce, for your presentation. Any comments or questions of Mr. Pierce? Mr. Perez.
How much does the study cost?
The study will vary from year to year, but I want to say, and I can look at Ms. Williams for, yeah, see, I was going to say $5,000, so she says $3,000 to $4,000.
And
now, I will tell you, Mr. Perez, the reason I think it's critical, and we've used this same firm since this fee was established in 1998, so we have consistency, but also I think it's important to have a third party validate it so that it is independent and it doesn't look like district staff is trying to, say, raise the fee or decrease the fee because of political pressure. So we have a third party conduct the fee for us each year, and they run it out, and it is what it is.
Okay. I noticed in the paper that I guess when senior citizens have the option to opt out on taxes, what fiscal impact does that have on us?
So that's relative.
Because I know there's a lot of baby boomers like us here saying, "Oh, we could do that, right?"
So that's relative to the Mello-Roos tax.
Right,
This is the.
This is developer
different.
fees, completely different.
It's completely different, but would that have an impact kind of with how much we charge?
So with the developer fee, there's no occupancy at that point. We don't know the age of, so what we do is it's an average of how many students on average are generated from all new single-family residences, and that takes into account age. There's going to be one home that'll have 3 or 4 children and one home that'll have 0.
Right.
And that directly affects the student generation rate, which is a key component in determining this fee. On the Mello-Roos, that was actually written into the document when it was approved by the voters that seniors would be granted an opportunity if they were 65 and over and didn't have any school-age children living in the residence, that they could qualify for a reduction. So we could compute that number. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I would say it's probably a relatively insignificant.
I mean, is it going up higher? I mean, because, you know,
The total
baby
number?
boomers are, yeah.
Boy,
I'd like to,
Yeah, just,
it's completely off topic.
I know,
And
but
it's not properly agendized to have that discussion. We
okay,
really have to stay
okay.
focused on what we're
right,
here to
but
discuss.
that's the issue I was wondering, you know, that's kind of relate with this. The last question, you mentioned grant. What was that?
So the state allocation board has what they call new construction grants,
Mhm.
and it varies if it's a K-6 in elementary school, a 7-8 middle school, or a 9-12 high school. And so we have a bank of eligibility with them. We pull from that eligibility, and for every student worth of eligibility, you get a grant based on the grade grouping of that student. So that grant is applied towards the project. So in Marion Mix's case, so it was a school, let's say of 650 at the time. So we would get the grant amount times the 650 students, and that's how much the state says it costs to the hard construction cost of the building. So that's the grant. The grant is built into the fee.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the explanation.
Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, thank you, Mr. Pierce, for your presentation. And as you stated earlier, I think, you know, if there were any alarming concerns, we would definitely be hearing from North State BIA and I'm sure developers directly. So I want to thank you for your proactive stance and maintaining those relationships. So thank you.
I'll move the
All right.
motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to forward for a public hearing and adoption on May 19th, 2015. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes, abstentions? Very good. Moving on, Dr. Kruger. Recognition of May 13th, 2015 as the Day of the Teacher.
Good evening again, President Singh Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Hine. I'm here to ask for you to adopt Resolution 59, recognizing May 13th, 2015 as Day of the Teacher in the Elk Grove Unified School District. Thousands of communities will take time out on Wednesday, May 13th, 2015 to honor their local educators and to acknowledge the contributions they make to our lives and the lives of our students. While it certainly takes a lot of people to make a school succeed, National Teacher Day focuses on teachers who work to make public schools great places for students to learn and who prepare them for success in college, careers, and life. The Elk Grove Unified School District Board of Education is asked to approve the attached resolution.
Thank you for that. I would like to call for a motion to adopt Resolution number 59, 2014-15, recognizing May 13, 2015 as Day of the Teacher in the district.
Move it.
We have a motion. Second, Mr. Madison. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Very good. Dr. Kruger, you're back on. Classified Employee Week resolution.
Yes, I would also like to ask you to adopt Resolution 60, 2014-15, which establishes Classified School Employees Week for the Elk Grove Unified School District as May 18th through 22nd, 2015. The California Legislature passed a measure in 1986, Classified School Employees Week, to recognize the valuable contributions and meaningful services that classified school employees make to our schools and to our students. In honor of this event, the Elk Grove Unified School District Board of Education is asked to approve the attached resolution.
All right, thank you for that. And I'd like to call for a motion to adopt Resolution number 60, 2014-15, recognizing May 18th through 22nd, 2015 as Classified Employees Week.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll
Great,
second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Mr. Cerruti, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Thank you, Madam President. Asian Pacific Heritage Week began in 1977. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed a joint resolution designating this as an annual celebration. In May of 1990, the holiday was expanded further by President George H. Bush, designating May to be Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States on May 7, 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869. The majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. Throughout the year, the contributions of Americans with Pacific Rim heritage are presented in the regular curriculum. However, the specific focus for 1 month serves as a reminder of the combined contributions of this group. And with that, I respectfully request that the board adopt a resolution to designate May 2015 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Thank you, Mr. Cerruti. I would like to call for a motion to adopt Resolution Number 61, 2014-15, designating May 2015 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I'll move the motion. Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right, Mr. Cerruti again, Disability Awareness Month resolution.
Thank you again, Madam President. The Board of Education of the Elk Grove Unified School District is requested to affirm the following resolution designating the month of May as a time for students and staff to increase their awareness of issues affecting persons with disabilities. Throughout this school year, in alignment with our mission statement that addresses all students, Elk Grove school-based programs and activities promote understanding of individuals with special needs. This resolution will establish May as a month where Elk Grove staff and students will pause to further reflect on these issues and celebrate the similarities and differences that enrich our learning community. And with that, I respectfully request the board proclaim May 2015 as Disability Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mr. Cerruti. I would like to call for a motion to adopt Resolution Number 62, 2014-15, proclaiming May 2015 as Disability Awareness Month.
I move Resolution 62.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? All right, moving on. Ms. Tina Penham, Joseph Kerr Middle School 50th Anniversary Resolution. Hello, Ms. Buffet.
Thank you, President Singh Allen, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Hine. I have Donnell Maffei, the principal of Joseph Kerr Middle School, here with me this evening. And tonight we will collectively ask that you approve Resolution Number 63, recognizing Joseph Kerr Middle School on its 50th anniversary. In 1964, when Elk Grove High School moved to its current campus on Elk Grove Boulevard, Joseph Kerr Middle School was born. And Joseph Kerr Middle School was the first and only middle school in our district serving every single 7th and 8th grade student within our 320 square mile boundary. Over the course of the last 50 years, Joseph Kerr Middle School has been known for its excellence by providing quality academic and extracurricular programs, by building a strong foundation for students as they move to high school, and also by instilling a sense of community in its students. Due to the continued dedication and commitment to this excellence, the school is poised to educate even more generations of students, and it is for that reason tonight that I ask you to approve this resolution.
Great, thank you, Ms. Penham. I would like to call for a motion to adopt Resolution Number 63, 2014 and 15, recognizing Joseph Kerr Middle School's 50th anniversary. I'll move it. All right, we have a motion. Second. And a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
And thank you so much again.
Thank you.
What I have for you this evening, though, is a special program as well as Joseph Kerr's Middle School's 50th anniversary pin.
Wonderful.
As you know, on Friday night, we will be hosting our celebration of 50 years of academic excellence in Elk Grove. And I'd like to personally invite all of you to this evening. And if you can make it, please proudly wear your pin that truly signifies the years of growth and excellence in Elk Grove. So I am so pleased this evening to present to our superintendent our 50th anniversary commemorative yearbook, which
I love it.
certainly shows Elk Grove Unified School District through the last 50 years.
Outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you to the board. You had personalized invitations.
Yes.
Didn't know that, so you can switch them back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I look forward, I will be there, I'm sure as a number of my colleagues, Ms. Maffei, to celebrate in this joyous occasion. That'll happen at the event. Yes. Good. Oh, really? And I also want to thank you separately as a board member of the Elk Grove Teen Center, that you have a great partnership with the Elk Grove Teen Center, and a number of the teen idols come from Joseph Kerr. So I want to thank you for that support, and hopefully more of our middle schools will engage with that wonderful opportunity to showcase teen talent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have board member and superintendent reports, and these are for committees only. And when we get to later part of the agenda where there's other items, we can bring up the other stuff then. But this is really to report back on some of the boards and committees that we are a part of. So I do know that Ms. Martinez-Larry has a report.
Yes, I attended the LCAP Consultation Committee meeting yesterday, and Mark Cerruti had actually helped lead the conversation and workshop. And at the workshop, we were able to have break out into small group sessions and also discuss some of the stakeholder input and the data collection, and really plan out a calendar as far as a timeline. And so I appreciated all the district staff being available and helping to guide those conversations that took place yesterday. And I believe we had a lot of valuable input. And so I am looking forward to seeing some of the changes regarding the calendars and the timeline. I know there were suggestions regarding columns too into the years and the adaptation of the LCAP looking to this school year and then the next projected school year. So looking forward to more of those discussions. As a group, we had suggested 2 more meetings in the upcoming year or so. And I think there's a lot of interest with keeping those 2 meetings, and maybe even a possible third was mentioned to me as a stakeholder had mentioned they'd like to see that ongoing just until the process is solidified.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez-Larry. Any other colleagues? Mr. Forcino.
Yes. As was just stated, we had the LCAP Consultation Committee meeting yesterday. I made a comment yesterday that apparently Mr. Cerruti and his staff didn't have enough work to do, because by the time we got through, they certainly had enough to do. As with the presentations that we get here, the presentations that we had there with respect to the variety of alternatives there are to look at and programs to provide, it was just a very beneficial day, beneficial to everyone. Great to have students there and have the student input. Great to have parents there and have parent input. Pretty much a validation of what we're doing with suggestions to strengthen it and some assurances. So that was very valuable. And then last week we had what I hope is next to the last meeting for the School Attendance and Review Board activity. We'll meet again in a week or 2 weeks, and we will finalize the presentation that will be brought here. Now, a lot was discovered as we looked at the School Attendance Review Board process. Certainly one that's discussed frequently, and that's an issue of consistency in the application of procedures and process that we have in our school district. There are some principals that adhere to process and take SARB seriously. Others don't take it at that same level. We lose millions of dollars as a school district, let alone the fact that we don't get to make the interventions with family and children that have positive impact on their lives. What we're looking at is certainly it'll be School Attendance Review Board, but the focus is on positive attendance. We'll be looking at incentives for schools, in as much as Mr. Pierce had put together the incentive for energy saving, so we can move forward with that. Mr. Cerruti spoke to this tonight on the sheet and indicated that the work of SARB committee was not done yet, and it'll have its place when it comes forward. I will say that a number of new positions will be requested, but irrespective of the fact that new positions will be requested both for fiscal services as well as the SARB board itself, that the price tag for what is being proposed for all the new positions is an amount that is less than what the one individual currently collects from lost attendance. And with the numbers of people we're looking at having in that program, once again, in addition to all the wonderful benefits of the intervention, if we will be recouping even more lost dollars than we do today. So it's been a good activity. It's taken a lot of time. Most of the people have attended on a regular basis and has had good value.
Thank you for that valuable information. Well, just speak really loudly. It's not coming up for whatever reason. It's not coming up. I'm loud, it's okay. Any other colleagues have opinion, Mr. Superintendent, do you have a report?
I don't have a full report, but I did want to note the passing of one of our teachers at Cosumnes River Elementary School, Mrs. Miller Fidley. The school is working through a real difficult time right now with their passing. Second grade teacher, how do you tell a second grade class that their teacher won't be with them anymore? I want to highlight the work of Mr. Golden, as the principal has just done a phenomenal job. We've received feedback from community members about the efforts and also the efforts of the district staff to support the school as well. So I just wanted to make sure we noted that tonight.
Thank you, sir. All right, on to the consent agenda. Mr. Forcino will assist.
Thank you. I'd like to move approval of the consent agenda, beginning with item number 17, approval of minutes, 18, personnel actions, 19, student teaching agreement with Pacific Union University, 20, appointment of consulting teachers to the beginning teacher support and assessment program and the peer assistance and review program, 21, approval of purchase order history, 22, warrant register approval, 23, acceptance of gifts, 24, ratification of contracts, 25, ratification of non-public school, non-public agency contracts, 26, Placer County Office of Education, 2415 contract, 27, award of contract for banking services, 28, Head Start preschool application, 2015-16, 29, out-of-state field trip approval, 30, Merriam Mix Elementary School change order 6, and 31, Mr. Pierce, new Dillard Elementary School increments 2A and 2B.
I think that's
That would be it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Forcina. Oh, I'm back on. I'd like to call for approval of the consent agenda items.
I will move the consent agenda as read.
All right, so we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, since we have nothing removed from the consent, any items from the floor? Hearing and seeing none, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
President?
Yes, ma'am.
Is mine dead too? So I'll make this very quick. I know it's late. I just very quickly wanted to invite you all to join me in participating this Friday in National College Signing Day, which will be celebrated and commemorated across the country. Ms. Pinkerton has discussed this with staff, and they'll be, with what little heads up I gave them, they'll be pushing some information out to staff just to participate in the social media campaign. On another date, I'd love to talk to you about getting this going as a district-wide event to foster a college-going culture, maybe, you know, in future years. But for now, if you are so inclined to wear whatever you have that bears the name of your alma mater on Friday and maybe promote some social media. Mr. Hall?
Believe it's a different date.
We just
Yes?
want to confirm the date. Is it May 1st?
That's what I have. Did you find something different? Yes,
May 1st, which, so
But so not this Friday.
week from Friday.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
This Friday, we'll all be at the Kerr
I'm
celebration.
always ahead. I'm always ahead.
okay, yep,
Wanted
absolutely.
to put out that invitation, May 1st, not this Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.